Story 1. Parents sided with the golden child after she intentionally scheduled her wedding on my other sister's high school graduation day. I, 23M, am one of 7 kids. There's Lydia, 31F, Josh, 28M, Leo, 25M, me, then Aaron, 21F, Nadia, 18F, and the surprise child, Lexi, 4F. With that many siblings, it's easy to get lost in the crowd. Some of us have our positions, so to speak. Lydia is the oldest, Lexi's the baby. I have a kid. Yes, that's my descriptor. Up gave us a grandchild. Erin is the golden child. She was the last planned child, the one supposed to tie up our family. She was born premature, so I understand that my parents coddled her to an extent, but it's more than that now. Erin's getting married and recently told us that she's brought the date forward due to a cancellation. No big deal, it just means they're getting married sooner. But the new date lands on the date of Nadia's HS graduation. Erin was sympathetic but said she's already committed to the date. They've printed the invitations. My parents don't go overboard on our HS grads, but they said that they just have to miss Nadia's. We were all sympathetic, but it wasn't intentional, or so I thought. But Nadia later told me and Leo that she was there when Erin got the call about the cancellation and told Erin that she was graduating that day. But Erin just laughed and accepted the date anyway. This, as much as I hate to admit it, sounds like a very Erin thing to do. She booked her engagement party for the night of Nadia's 18th birthday. Luckily, she wasn't celebrating until the weekend. She announced her engagement at my oldest sister's wedding anniversary. Everything is about her. I confronted Erin about this, and she said that Nadia's HS graduation didn't matter. She wanted to get married to the love of her life sooner, and our family had been to plenty of HS graduations at this point anyway. She said something like, "We still have Lexi." But here is what gets me the most. Nadia's been looking forward to this for so long. She's watched all of us graduate and have these huge celebrations thrown by our parents. I asked Nadia what she wanted, and she said she wanted to have her day, so I told my family that me and Nadia won't be attending the wedding. Leo has also dropped out. Everyone's angry. Erin's furious. And I didn't make it better by telling her that I could watch our other siblings get married since it's all the same in her eyes. Mom's trying to convince me to come to the wedding because graduation isn't as important. But I feel like if I don't do this, then it sets a precedent in Nadia's life that she's always going to mean less than Erin. I've had messages calling me an idiot, etc. They're telling me to step up and be a good brother, but that's what I'm doing. My son is supposed to be ring bearer, but with how my family is reacting, I'm considering pulling him out of the wedding too. My dad's told Nadia he'll take her to dinner after the wedding. Nadia's currently staying with me because Mom won't stop cornering her. I thought that's something I should have mentioned in the post, but the difference is a month. Nadia's graduation is next Friday, and Erin was supposed to get married a month later. I'm not sure on the details. I think she wanted to get married in June, but none of the venues she liked had any slots until July. I'm honestly not sure, and honestly, I don't care to know because right now, it doesn't change the fact that she's chosen to get married on Nadia's graduation date. She committed to the date late last year. She's had to sacrifice some aspects of the wedding for this new date and had to fork out more money to make it work. She and her fiancé have been together since they were 16, so I don't know why she's in a rush to get married all of a sudden when before she was just happy to be with him, or so she used to gush whenever any of us spoke about our own significant others. I'm not close to the guy myself, but he seems pretty chill, the complete opposite of her. I don't think she's pregnant, but again, I can't be sure. She's always been pretty determined that she won't have any children until she's at least 25. But I understand things change and whatnot. I don't think she'd choose to have a child right now unless she's decided she likes the attention my son gets from our parents or something. And those are just 2 examples. Here are some honorable mentions. I proposed to my partner 2 months after Erin got engaged. This proposal was something I've been planning for months, something my family had been made aware of for months, and fell on a day that's significant to me and my partner. Erin was angry because I should have waited until this year so she'd be married beforehand. Our brother Josh was cheated on a few years back. It really broke his heart and his confidence was in tatters for a while afterwards. Erin asked him if he could give her a necklace he bought for his girlfriend because it's not like he needed it. A few days after the incident took place, when he yelled at her, she cried to our parents about how she was trying to help him. She broke her leg the morning of Josh's college graduation. It was an accident, but all of us agreed that it was pretty on brand for her. I don't want to defend my parents because they are wholeheartedly in the wrong here, but I think they were under the impression that Aaron spoke to Nadia separately when she announced the date change back in March. Like they thought maybe they worked something out themselves because they thought it was an unfortunate mistake. Nadia only told me and Leo about the fact that it was intentional last week. They've otherwise been pretty good at attending/throwing events meant for each of us specifically, but unfortunately on more than one occasion, the spotlight was always turned to Aaron for some reason or another. Like, as I mentioned in the post, we were celebrating Lydia's wedding anniversary, and Aaron thought it would be a good idea to announce that she was engaged without consulting Lydia at all, and our parents allowed her to do that and encouraged her by being excited for her. My parents don't seem to have picked up on this pattern in Aaron, and as I'm typing this, I'm thinking that maybe I should write a list of as many of these instances as I can remember and confront my parents with it. Unfortunately, we know which of us were planned and which of us were not. Lydia wasn't planned. Josh and Leo were, but I wasn't. Then our parents decided to try for another girl, and they got their miracle. Nadia is their surprise gift, and Lexi's their blessing. It's not so much that any of us were unwanted, just unplanned. I think our parents had Lexi assuming she'd be the baby, and then she was born premature, and they never once thought about changing their stance that she's their miracle child. They love Nadia and they love Lexi, and my mom did apologize about having to miss out on Nadia's graduation when Aaron first told us about it. I think she mentioned that we could celebrate as a family after Aaron came back from her honeymoon. But things changed when Leo and I sat Aaron and our parents down to tell them that Nadia wanted to attend her graduation and we were going to be there for her, too. Too many big days have been monopolized by Aaron, so I want Nadia to have a day that is hers, even if it's only celebrated by her two brothers, her brother's partner, and her nephew. Update 1. It's 2 days after D-Day and I finally come bearing an update. I've had to condense it quite a bit because a lot has happened. Before I start, Nadia wanted me to thank everyone who congratulated her on her graduation. She was overwhelmed by the support you all gave her, especially after she faced such opposition from our family. So let's start. Last Friday, Leo and I went to speak to our parents and Aaron. I wanted to tell them that I'd be pulling my son from the wedding. Our older siblings ended up turning up as well, so it was us four standing up for Nadia. Leo had spoken to them the night before and helped them see things more clearly from Nadia's eyes. Apparently, it didn't sink in with them that Aaron chose the date intentionally. There was a lot of yelling. Aaron accused me of trying to sabotage her wedding. Our parents tried to convince me to let them take my son to the wedding, but I stood my ground. I felt a lot stronger with my older siblings with me. There's only 2 years between me and Aaron after all. I'm not much of an older brother. Luckily, Lydia was there. Her words carry more weight as the eldest, and she didn't give Aaron or my parents room to argue as she told them that Aaron chose the date intentionally, admitted as much in front of me and Leo, and that this was normal behavior for her. Lydia told them that if they continued to favor Aaron so blatantly, the rest of us would go no contact and Lexi would likely follow in the future. Our dad started yelling, not at us, but at Aaron. Surprisingly, I've never seen him so angry before, and to see it directed at Aaron was shocking. Our mom asked us to leave. We didn't hear from anyone on that side until Monday when Aaron's fiancé, George, asked to meet us at our parents'. He apologized to Nadia. He didn't know that the wedding and graduation overlapped, nor did he know that it was something Aaron did on purpose. Our dad was the one to tell him. What followed was a long talk between us, during which we all aired our grievances. I told our parents that we all felt that they valued Aaron more, that none of us mattered to them compared to her. Her artwork always went up on the fridge, ours always went in the drawer. I told them that, as a parent, I could never imagine treating my child like that. Aaron tried to argue. She tried to tell us that we were trying to turn her into a bad guy, trying to turn our parents against her, trying to sap her wedding. Our mom told her to be quiet, that it was our time to talk. George stepped in to tell us that he didn't expect us to attend the wedding, but we were welcome to attend the reception. He went so far as to say that he wished he could have canceled the wedding altogether, but it had only cost him more money that he'd spent by bringing it forward. Mom's willingness to hear us out lasted less than 24 hours. By Tuesday, she was begging us to reconsider. Apparently, our feelings meant nothing in the face of Aaron's dire stress, and the fact that people would be questioning our absence on the big day. I haven't spoken to my mom since, but I did ask my dad to bring me some of Nadia's things because she is going to be staying with me full-time. Dad took Nadia out for an early graduation celebration on Wednesday. They had a daddy-daughter date that I think she really needed. He apologized for a lot of things and told her he wanted to do the same with the rest of us. But Wednesday was about her. I'm happy she got that one-on-one time with him. She was happy coming home to me. In our sibling group chat, she said that she really thinks Dad is going to try to mend bridges with us, even if Mom won't. Dad also turned up early yesterday morning. I'm talking 6:30 a.m., to give Nadia flowers. He told her that he was proud of her. George even called while he was getting ready for his big day to congratulate Nadia, which I really appreciated. We didn't hear from Mom or Aaron. Our paternal grandma ended up coming to the graduation with us. It was a great day, like a really great day. We didn't think about the wedding, didn't think about Aaron. We just had fun together. My son got to wear his aunt's cap and gown and nearly drowned in the fabric. Our grandma tried on the cap, too. We took photos and sent them to our dad, who posted them in a Facebook post he wrote to congratulate both Aaron on her wedding and Nadia on her graduation, and we laughed about how it must have pissed off our newly wedded sister. We went out for dinner, and we as siblings gifted Nadia money for a week away with her best friend, which somebody suggested in a comment on the initial post. I texted George my congratulations. Despite everything, I do hope he and Aaron are happy together. While she might not love us, I don't doubt that Aaron loves him. Yes, she wants her spotlight and her moment, but I don't think she's marrying him just for that. Bringing the wedding forward? Sure, that's a hugely malicious tactic to bring herself more attention. Marrying him for the sake of having a wedding? She isn't that of a narcissist. As of right now, I plan on staying no contact with my mom unless she makes some big changes. This is a sentiment shared not only by the majority of my siblings, but is also encouraged by our dad and grandma. She's tried reaching out to me and my partner, mostly berating us for not attending the wedding and accusing us of planning to keep her grandchild away from her. At the moment, our summer looks busy. We're planning on filling it with as many family outings as possible before Nadia leaves for college. We've also got Josh's 29th birthday to plan. Our dad's even joining in. This may cause a bigger rift between him and Mom, but for now, at least, it looks like we're his priority. Lydia's threat really did something to him. Thanks everyone who left comments on the original post. I know they really cheered Nadia up when she was worrying about whether or not she was doing the right thing by choosing herself. Part of me wishes we could have taken this stand earlier, but it took us a while to find our voices. Looking into the future, I do see 2 empty spaces at my own wedding, but I also see 5 siblings cheering me on. I'm happy with that. Update 2. It's been about 5 months since I've last posted, and I've had some requests for an update, so I figured I'd sit down and write one up. Bear in mind a lot can happen in 5 months, and that's definitely true for this. Let me start off with July. Aaron and George went on their honeymoon, and their absence sent our mom into a frenzy. She wasn't used to having no one around. Someone was always visiting, mostly Aaron, but the rest of us would visit out of obligation and to see Nadia and Lexi. With Aaron on her honeymoon and the rest of us not, Mom had no visitors, and she really didn't like that. Literally the day after Aaron left, we started getting bombarded with phone calls. She tried convincing Nadia first, which Lydia thought was a strategic move because Nadia is the more timid of all of us and thus more likely to be persuaded. When Nadia turned her down, she turned her sights on the rest of us. We all got identical phone calls with her trying to persuade us to go visit her, to understand her, to see things from Aaron's perspective. She even brought up the circumstances of Aaron's premature birth and how it was a miracle that she was even here. Josh told her to do better with Lexi. Lydia blocked her number. When the phone calls didn't work, she started turning up at our homes. She continued spewing much of the same she had over the phone and before the wedding. She didn't understand what she'd done so wrong, why we were treating her like this. She called me ungrateful and disrespectful. She accused us of harboring unnecessary jealousy towards Aaron and that she loved us all equally. I didn't respond to these comments. I was just trying to prevent her from going inside and saying the same things to Nadia, who was with my partner and son in the living room. Her comments didn't deserve a response, and when she was done, I asked her to leave as calmly as I could, but truthfully, I felt a little like crying. But who wouldn't feel shitty with their mom yelling in their face like that, trying to downplay years of pain and calling it unnecessary jealousy? My siblings and I have been let down time and time again by her and our dad ever since Aaron was born. They missed out on so many things over the years, both big and small, but we had one thing that they never missed, and we were happy with just that one thing, and that was our HS graduations. But they couldn't give that to Nadia. All we had were our HS graduations. They missed Josh's college graduation because Aaron broke her leg. It was an accident, I get that, but they never made it up to him. They never celebrated this huge achievement afterwards, and he just had to grin and bear it. Our mom didn't turn up to my partner's babysitter after making such a huge fuss about it, because Aaron didn't want to go and wanted one of them to get their nails done together instead. But our jealousy is unnecessary. Sorry, I don't know how I managed to stay calm when she was yelling at me, but I did. Asking her to leave made her switch tactics though, and she started calling out for my son, trying to coax him to go to her and telling me that she had a right to see her grandson. My partner stepped in then because she was seething and took my place at the door. Mom yelled some more, but she left when my partner threatened to call the cops. Mom repeated this song and dance with my older siblings, but similarly got nowhere with them. Then came the Facebook posts, indirect rants about ungrateful people, and how shocking it is that some kids could turn against their parents so easily. Erin somehow got involved while on her honeymoon and called Lydia to scold her for being mean to our mom. But as I've said before, Lydia is angry and she's had enough. Whatever she said to Erin prevented her from calling the rest of us. There was then a Facebook post about how much it hurt to be kept from a grandchild. Now, there were no names mentioned, but there is only one grandchild, and that is my son. My mom's sister called me. There was yelling. I blocked the number. I know Dad was trying to convince our mom to just leave us alone. He kept apologizing because she just wasn't listening to him. Erin came home after 2 weeks. She tried reaching out to Lydia again, asking for us all to talk because, and this is a quote from Lydia, "Clearly we all have some issues to work out. We did not turn up." Erin was very angry at that because she's not used to us turning up for her. July wasn't all bad though. While our mom was on a rampage, our dad was still trying to do better by us, and he's improved a lot. In July, he and I went out for a meal together, just the two of us, and grabbed a drink, and he apologized. It wasn't a generic apology that he could have repeated to all of us about how he's sorry that he hurt us and neglecting us, but he brought up specific instances that he wanted to apologize for. He thought back on all those years and picked out moments that he wanted to apologize to me for. I know he did the same for the others, but having him apologize for things like canceling a fishing trip because Erin needed him was something I wasn't expecting, and I never really cared for fishing, but I wanted to go on that trip because I always saw it on TV. You know, I'd always see a dad and son fishing together, and I wanted to have that. I wanted Dad to prove that I was a priority to him somewhere deep down. It didn't happen, and I never asked again, but we went fishing in July. What started as a trip between the two of us soon grew into a family day out when my siblings expressed an interest in going fishing too. My brother first, then Nadia, and even Lydia, who hates the smell of fish. Dad brought Lexi and I brought my son, and it was great. It was one of the best days of my life. I suck at fishing, but I'm pretty great at collecting seashells. It was brilliant. Our parents did end up arguing when Dad went home. I wasn't there, so I don't know every little detail, but from what Dad told me, the argument was mostly because Mom didn't understand why we were still in contact with him and not her. She found it insulting that we were repairing our relationship with him. She was angry that Dad wasn't pushing us to forgive her, or why he wasn't stopping us from acting out. She was angry that he didn't extend an invitation to her and Erin for the fishing trip, and she was even angrier when he explained that their presence would make us uncomfortable. Josh turned 29 in the end of July. We booked an escape room for the 5 of us siblings. Then we met our dad and partners for dinner that evening. Josh introduced us to his new partner for the first time. All of our attention was on Josh. The day was completely about him, which was a first for our family. Then there was a party thrown for him by his friends, which I came out of with a massive hangover. Mom started giving us the silent treatment in the middle of August. Dad moved out in September. While we were getting the silent treatment, Dad was bearing the brunt of her anger, and it really took it out of him. He was trying to do better by us, and she was trying to villainize us, and he ultimately told her that if she didn't take accountability for her actions soon, then he'd be contacting a lawyer. Mom didn't take him seriously. He's been staying in Lydia's guest room since. Mom doubled down and said that he was blind for not seeing how we were manipulating him. Unlike the rest of us, Dad obviously still has regular contact with Erin, and according to him, she's even told Mom to reconsider. Unsurprisingly, Erin's involvement is what got Mom to relent. I'm not sure if she's thinking about how she's treated us or if she's silently stewing. I know she asked Dad if he's going to move back home, but he said that it was better for them to have space right now. Personally, I'm struggling to see an outcome where our mom sincerely admits that she was in the wrong. I think she'll say it just to get Dad back home and the rest of us talking to her again. I don't think she'll ever hold us to the same level as Erin. In brighter news, there's officially less than a year left until my own wedding. Currently, there is no place for my mom or Erin. My partner, Jade, and I are having our fathers wear ties that match me and my groomsmen. Something I originally didn't plan to do, but I'm happy with the change. Nadia settled in at college. She's made some new friends with kids in her classes, and she's enjoying. She's happy. Even though we have an active group chat, she FaceTimes me every few days just to talk. Most of what she says I've already read in the GC, but I'm always willing to listen to her stories again. Nadia never used to talk this much. She looks a lot happier now than she did 5 months ago. I think that's everything. I'm sorry for the novel, but like I said, a lot can happen in 5 months. Now on to the next story. Story 2. Toxic parents bullied me for years, so I didn't invite them to my wedding, but my sister is begging me to invite them and offered to pay for them to attend because this is my mom's last wish. So, I, 25F, have never really had a good relationship with my family. I grew up as a farm kid in Missouri and lived there until it was time for me to go to college. My family consisted of me, my parents, my older sister, 30F, and my grandmother. Of all these people, the only person I had a somewhat normal relationship with would be my sister. Mind you, we are not close. It's just that she didn't come after me as much as everybody else in the family did. I guess the part where I failed my family was my appearance, since I was born with a disease called vitiligo, and everybody else in their family, let's just say that they are the beauty standard. They are all tall, blonde, and beautiful. Not me, though. According to them, I was the ugly duckling of the family, and they never let me forget it, even for 1 second. My face had a huge patch of discoloration, and my family loved to make fun of me for that. They would compare me to the cows and tell me that God must have made a mistake and made me a human instead of a calf. I can imagine what kind of toll it must have taken on me as a young child, because I became very self-conscious of my looks. As if getting bullied by kids at school was not bad enough, I had to face that kind of thing at home as well. When I started getting older, I tried to stand up for myself, but they would tell me that they were just joking, and I shouldn't get so sensitive about everything. Those snide remarks disguised as jokes continued for a really long time, and it would always hurt me. I was really relieved when I got to leave for college, because then I would finally be on my own, and I chose a college that was the farthest from my home, so I wouldn't be expected to come back often and would only return for the holidays. In college, I was the happiest version of myself because people were a lot more open-minded here, and I decided that once I graduated, there was no way that I would be going back home at any cost. Another reason that I did not want to go back home was because I had finally found the love of my life when I was in college, and that's the guy that I'm getting married to now, Jacob. Jacob and I became friends in our first year and started dating towards the end of our second year. Since then, we have stayed together, and it is the best thing that's ever happened to me. While my family made me feel like I was the ugliest person on earth, he made me feel the exact opposite. When I went back home for my sister's wedding in my final year of college, I was going to tell them about Jacob so I could introduce him to them when I came back for the holidays that year. But something that they said at the wedding made me feel so awful that I decided that after I graduated from college, I would not like to keep in touch with them anymore. On the day of the wedding, one of my uncles was kind of teasing me about how it was my turn next, and if I had somebody in mind, then it was the right time for me to come up and say it to my parents. He was just messing around with me, but my grandmother made a remark about how it was very unlikely that I would have somebody because with that face I would never find anyone. My parents were the first people to agree, and then they started laughing as if it was the funniest thing. Everybody got awkward and didn't really say anything, but that comment really hurt me. Even though they had made comments like that several times before, I don't know why, but that particular incident hurt me like never before, and I made up my mind that they did not deserve to be part of my life. A couple of months after my sister's wedding, I graduated, and as a formality, I invited my parents to the graduation ceremony. They attended, and we were cordial with each other. I even introduced them to Jacob as my boyfriend, and they did not even bother to hide their shock that somebody as normal as him was willing to be with me. By then, I had told Jacob all about my family and how cruel they were, so he did not interact much with them either. After the graduation ceremony, I thanked my parents for paying for everything through college, and I told them that as soon as I could afford it, I would pay them back. I also told them that I had decided to stay, and I wouldn't be going back to the farm with them. That seemed to tick them off a bit, but I said that I liked the city life more, and they left after a really cold goodbye. Since then, a couple of years have passed, and we haven't really had any proper contact. They wish me on my birthdays and on the holidays since I don't go back home anymore, and I wish them back, but that's about it. I'm really happy with this arrangement because after the way they have treated me my entire life, I think this is for the best. After graduation, Jacob and I moved in together, and his parents were kind enough to cover our rent until both of us were able to find stable jobs because I wasn't going back home. A couple of months ago, at the beginning of this year, he proposed to me and I accepted. It was about time since we have been together for ages now, and recently the invitations were sent out. My sister and her husband received one, but I did not invite my parents or my grandmother, and I think the reasons for that are pretty obvious. I don't even speak to them much, and they are not the kind of people that I would want around me on such a special day. I honestly did not think that my family would be shocked that they were not invited, but they were, and as soon as they realized that they had not received an invitation, my mother called me up to tell me how unfair and insulting this was. My sister received her invitation a week ago, and 3 days back, my mother called me up to tell me that my family was still waiting for their invitation to my wedding. She said that she had been able to overlook the fact that they hadn't been invited to my engagement party, but the wedding was a big deal, and she expected me to be a bit more punctual with the invites. At which point, I told her that she did not receive the invitations because I had no intention of having them at my wedding at all. Then she started yelling at me about how I was an ungrateful child who had first snubbed the opportunity to inherit the farm and respect the family business that had given me everything that I wanted, and now I was acting like I was too good for them just because they were simple farm folk. That was pretty ridiculous, so I clarified the real reason that I did not want them at my wedding was because of the comments they had made about me and my appearance my entire life. She tried to say that they were just jokes, and it was petty of me to take them to heart, but I told her that that's just how it was, and I did not want them in my life. Then, I hung up and blocked her. For good measure, I blocked my dad as well. It was very satisfactory for me because I had wanted to do that for a really long time, and I finally had an excuse to go no contact with them permanently without feeling guilty about it later. But within 2 hours of that, my sister called me up and told me that she was willing to cover the cost of everything, right from flying our family down here to the cost of accommodation and even having them at the wedding, but all she wanted me to do was just extend an invitation to them and apologize for what I had said about not wanting them in my life. I thought it was weird that she was taking their side because she usually stays out of the family drama, and I found it offensive because I had invited her and her husband, so I couldn't understand why she was trying to get me to invite our family as well. I told her that she was free not to attend if she felt strongly about this, but I was not extending any invitation to our family. And then she told me this was not about her or how she felt, but there was something that I didn't know, and our family hadn't told me or anybody else about it because they didn't want me to worry while I was in another state, but my mom had actually been diagnosed with stage 2 lung cancer a couple of weeks ago. Apparently, it was her last wish to see her daughter getting married. They had apparently kept this a secret because not only was I in another state, but I was also getting married in a couple of weeks, so they did not want to put a damper on the celebration by sharing this somber news. Apparently, my family didn't know that my sister was telling me about this, but she was just really desperate for me to invite our family and make amends with them because this was my mother's last wish. And she told me that I would regret it for the rest of my life if I didn't invite them and at least try to fix my relationship with my mother before something happened. That news changed everything because now I felt like I would be the bad guy forever if I didn't make amends with my dying mother. I mean, how do you hold a grudge against somebody who has been diagnosed with cancer? It's really difficult, especially when that person is your own mother. So I was a total mess after that phone call with my sister and had no idea what to do until I called Jacob and told him all about it. He was the one who suggested that they might be lying for sympathy. Until then, I had been so emotional that I hadn't even considered the possibility, but after he brought it up, I decided to think about it. I didn't know who to talk to at that point because my sister had made it very clear to me that nobody else apart from her, my father, and my grandmother knew about the diagnosis. So I decided to contact my aunt, my mother's younger sister, who had helped me settle in when I first moved here. I knew that she was nothing like my mom and grandma, and I'm pretty sure that even if I did talk to her about this, in case the diagnosis was real, my mother would have no reason to mind it because that was her own sister after all, and they were pretty close. She and I have always had a moderately good relationship, so when I told her about what my sister had said, she told me that she had been considering bringing this up with me but was having second thoughts. But since I myself had called to talk to her about it, she had decided that she couldn't lie to me and was not going to cover for my mother. She told me that apparently, when my sister received an invitation but they didn't, my parents and my grandmother had been really offended. Then they had contacted her to find out if she had received an invitation as well, and when they discovered that she had, there was no stopping them, and my mother had apparently been telling everyone that the reason that I had snubbed my parents was that I did not think that they were worthy of being invited since they were simple farm folk. Once again, that was not true. My mother had confided to my aunt that she was not going to let this go unanswered and was going to call me up and confront me about it, and had told her that apparently if I still refused to respect their right to attend my wedding, that's what they said, they would just tell me that my mother was sick, and knowing the emotional fool that I am, I would forgive them instantly and invite them to the wedding along with an apology. Once they were at my wedding, they would make sure that I never forgot that day, and it sounded quite ominous. So my aunt had wanted to discuss it with me but didn't know if it was her place to say something. She then apologized to me for not bringing it up with me earlier, and I forgave her because after all, I never would have found out about any of this if she hadn't spilled the beans. After she told me the truth, I called Jacob back to let him know that he had been right. My mother had been lying so they could weasel their way into receiving an invitation out of sympathy, and then they planned on attending my wedding and ruining it for me. Both of us were pretty pissed off, and we decided to make a post on social media regarding this since I had learned that they had also been going around telling people that I was not inviting them since they were farm folk, and I thought I was too good for them. So we put out the truth, and after that, I blocked my sister as well since she had clearly been part of this whole mess and had picked which side she wanted to be on. I also texted her to let her know that I was resending her invitation and I did not want her at my wedding either. Once that was all done, Jacob and I finally felt a bit better about the situation, but after I put up my post, I received a message from my grandmother's phone number, whom I had forgotten to block. It was clearly my mother, and she had sent a text saying that it didn't matter what I posted on social media. She was still going to make sure that I did not get to go through with a wedding because she was never going to allow any of this to happen without her blessing. She said that I would never be happy with Jacob without the blessing of my family, and I still had the chance to fix things with her. That made me so angry that I responded to her and told her that I really wish that she actually had been diagnosed with cancer because then I might have found her a bit easier to tolerate because I knew that I wouldn't have to put up with her for much longer. Then I blocked that number as well, but unfortunately, I realized that I shouldn't have responded to her at all because she took a screenshot of that message from me and put it up on her social media accounts, and now half of the family thinks that I took it too far while the other half thinks that my parents are sick in the head. I kind of feel bad about that comment, though, because I don't want to be the kind of person who says things like that, but I feel like I had been pushed to the limit that day. So, AITA, for saying that I wished my mother had truly been diagnosed with lung cancer? Edit. Hi, so some people were wondering why my parents would be annoyed with the fact that I wouldn't be coming back home with them after graduation if they really seemed to dislike me so much. That's actually because my parents had always instructed me and my sister were going to take over the farm once they got too old. They expected us to run it side by side, and part of the reason that they wanted me as well was because they wanted it to stay within the family. If the control of the farm went entirely to my sister, there was no doubt that her husband would stake a claim to it as well, and they did not want that. Me being part of the equation would probably prevent that, and we have had a discussion about this as well one time, a couple of days after my sister's wedding, and even then, I had been planning to say no, but I didn't say it because I didn't want to fight with them while I was still in college and relying on them for my expenses. A lot of people believe that I should have cut them off after I moved away for college, or at least after I graduated, and I wish I could have done that, but I did not want to cut them off while I was in college because otherwise, I would not have anybody to rely on to pay for everything, and that would be a big problem. After that, I didn't cut them off because it just seemed a little unnecessary since I had already moved far away and had distanced myself from them both physically and emotionally. But yeah, I guess I should have done that. Update 1. Thank you so much, you guys, for taking time out of your day to comment on the post. It's been 4 days, and my family is still blocked. I'm not going to apologize to them for anything. Jacob and I had a discussion about this at length, and we realized that I was stressing way too much about what my family thought of me. If certain people were with my parents in this matter, that was their prerogative altogether. If they wished not to attend my wedding because they wanted to support my parents, I couldn't change their minds, and I really didn't want to anymore. So, after discussing it with each other, we decided to put out a statement saying that at this point, we were really done with this entire fiasco. If people wanted to attend my wedding, they were free to do so, and if they didn't, they really didn't have to. I also mentioned that most people in my family have always known that my parents and my grandmother have been nothing short of cruel to me all my life and have always made fun of my appearance, knowing that I have a medical condition and cannot do anything about it. They have always made me feel ugly and small, and since they can't tolerate the fact that I'm not trying to get along with them anymore, they don't respect me either. It felt good to say it out loud because I was getting sick of people in my family thinking that they could just text me that I had taken things too far and thinking that that would make me apologize to my parents. They had never bothered to think about what I had been going through all these years, and my parents, the people who were supposed to protect me from the world, ended up being the people who made me feel worse about myself. They had never supported me during childhood and told my parents that they were wrong for the things that they said. So how was it that my saying something cruel to my mother out of anger as retaliation was any worse than what they were doing? At least I had been provoked. That could be my excuse. But I was a child when my parents used to say such horrible things to me. What was their excuse? I put all of these thoughts together and made a post with Jacob, and after that we have not received any messages from any relatives telling me that I had taken things too far. The ones who were on my side had been kind enough to reach out to me to tell me that I was not alone and they were with me, and the people who had at least bothered to take a stand for me in the past against my parents. So I was grateful for that. The rest of my family members who are with my parents can go take a hike. I really don't care about them anymore. Update 2. Hi. So we're just a week away from the wedding, and today my aunt showed up at my house in the morning to tell us that my parents were here with my grandma. She told me that my mother still had no idea who was the one who had revealed their plan to me. She trusted my aunt implicitly, so she thinks that I guessed her plan, which is very stupid. Anyway, they contacted my aunt to tell them that they had landed last night and were staying in a hotel near my house. Apparently, they planned on confronting me on the day of the wedding right before the ceremony. I don't know how they are expecting to be able to do that because I'm getting married in a hotel which is not even close to my house. And even if they do come along with me, they are not going to get any rooms to stay in that hotel since it's been booked up for ages. More importantly, there is going to be security there. I don't know how they are planning to pull this off. Anyway, I thank my aunt for letting me know, but I found it a bit strange that she had come all the way to my house to tell me something that she could have just shared with me on the phone. When I asked her about it, she started looking really uneasy and said that the reason she had to come was because last night, my mother put her on the phone with my grandma, and they kind of cornered her. They started taunting her about how, in spite of having a daughter who lives here, my grandmother is still having to put up in a hotel instead of being invited to stay at her daughter's house. My aunt told me that she had really tried to avoid it, but apparently, they had really pushed her into letting them stay with her instead, and now they were at her house. So she was kind of skeptical about texting me or calling me to let me know what was going on. That's why she had chosen to visit me, and she apologized to me profusely. But she just said that she was finding it very difficult to go against her mother and her sister, and she really wanted to be on the right side of things, but they were making it really difficult for her to say no. I personally think that it was pretty weak of my aunt to give in so easily, But I told her that it was fine that they were staying with her and not in a hotel like they intended, since now I could just go to her house with her and confront them about what they were planning to do. In a hotel, it might have been a slightly more complicated situation because there is security and stuff. Anyway, my aunt did not want me to do that, but I convinced her, and now Jacob and I are heading over to her place. Update 3. Hi, so we just came back from my aunt's place about an hour ago, and we had a pretty big showdown with my parents and my grandmother, but I don't feel bad about it in the slightest. In fact, I feel really relieved because I think I have finally managed to shake them off, and they probably won't be bothering me anytime soon. So as soon as I showed up at the house with my aunt, my mother started looking really shocked to see me. Then she came to the realization that it must have been my aunt who had spilled the beans about their plan to me earlier, and then my grandmother and my mom started yelling at my aunt about how she had betrayed them. But I nipped it in the bud because this was supposed to be about my with them, and I wasn't going to let them distract me. So I told her as politely as I could that I had made it very clear that I did not want them at my wedding, and neither did I want anything to do with them in the future. If they couldn't take the hint, I could definitely call the cops on my wedding day, and they could give him a clear picture of what I wanted to do with them, which was nothing. My parents got mad because apparently I had no right to threaten them after everything that they had done for me. So I told them that whatever they had done for me, it had been because they had chosen to have me, and it was not like they were doing me a favor by raising me. I also reminded them that they had only done the bare minimum. They have never been affectionate or loving to me, and that's what a kid definitely needs when they're growing up. I got a bit emotional while telling them that they had made me feel like crap about myself for my entire childhood, and when I was finally happy as a grown-up, they couldn't stand it and wanted to ruin it for me. I called them selfish and said that I was really glad that they had decided to show up here, so I could finally say all these things to their face because maybe then my words would finally make sense to them. After my emotional outburst, I stormed out of the house without even waiting for a response and got into the car. Jacob and I drove back home in silence, and once we were back, he comforted me as I cried so that I could get it all out of my system. I feel much better about the situation now, and my aunt has texted me to tell me that after I left, my mother and my grandmother turned on her for a bit, but she finally stood up to them and asked them to leave. So they packed up their things and left within half an hour, and she doesn't know if they are going to stay in a hotel now or if they're just going to go back home, but she's just glad that they're out of our hair. Update 4. So I got married last week, and it was absolutely surreal. After the last update, I had no interactions with my parents, and I hadn't even kept in touch with anybody who was still speaking to them. So I felt very lost since I had no idea what they were up to, and I was afraid that they were planning to do something on the day of my wedding, since I was pretty sure that because I had invited my sister, she must have told him all about the wedding venue and stuff. But thankfully, none of my worst fears materialized, and I was able to get married without a hitch. I had posted some photos on social media, and my sister actually reached out to me to let me know that she was really sorry for playing along with my parents and said that she realized that it was really wrong of her. I had blocked her phone number, so she reached out to me on social media since she could still contact me there. Anyway, she told me that she was really happy for me and congratulated me on the wedding, and I thanked her. We left it at that because I have not completely forgiven her, but at least she had the good sense to apologize. Maybe someday I will forgive her, and maybe we might reconcile, but that's going to take a long time because now I just want to enjoy my new life with Jacob. Some people that I will definitely never be reconciling with, though, are my parents, because even though they did not pull off anything at the wedding, which I'm really thankful for, they reached out to me a couple of days back to let me know that they will be cutting me out of their life permanently and legally. So they were just disowning me, and after they are gone, I will not be inheriting anything. I'm fine with that, to be honest. I actually never expected them to include me and their will in the first place, and even if they had, I would think that they would leave me something completely pointless or useless because everything good was obviously going to go to my sister. They wrote an email to me, and after reading that, I just deleted it and moved on with my life because I really don't care. I'm going to leave for my honeymoon in a couple of days, and I'm just going to have fun now. Now on to the next story. Story 3. I, 29M, feel like my girlfriend, 26F, only settled for me. Her best friend, 26M, is really the one she wants. Should I end things? Sorry for the long post. I didn't realize how much I had to say until I got it all typed out. Thanks in advance to anyone who reads all this. I've been with my girlfriend, Jordan, for a little over 2 years. We live together and we have 2 cats. Up until this weekend, I genuinely thought everything was perfect in our relationship, which I know is what everyone says in these posts, but I really was thinking that I was going to ask her to marry me sometime in the next year. We don't ever get into arguments. Jordan is very sweet and easygoing, and normally we just mesh well on everything. Honestly, if everything in our relationship hadn't been so good up until now, I probably would have just broken up with her this weekend. But because things have truly been so perfect, I'm not sure if maybe I'm jumping to the wrong conclusion about what to do because my feelings got hurt. The other person who's important in this story is Jordan's friend, Mark. She's known Mark for their whole lives because they both grew up in the same small religious community. Jordan isn't part of that religion anymore. She decided to leave the church when she was, I think, 19 and moved to the state that we live in now. Mark still is in the religion and apparently takes it really seriously. I'm told he now works for the church back in Jordan's hometown. Also, as far as I know, Mark is the only person from the religious community that Jordan still talks to besides her parents, which I'm mentioning because I now think it could be a red flag. So on Saturday, I met Mark for the first time because he was in our city and Jordan wanted us all to have dinner together. At this point, I want to say I will admit that when we were first dating and I found out that Jordan had a best friend who was a guy, I didn't really like it, especially because it seemed like they were on FaceTime with each other a lot. But since it was a childhood friend and they mostly didn't see each other in person, I just trusted Jordan that Mark was only a friend and didn't let it bother me, and eventually I got over it. So when we were going to dinner, I wasn't jealous or suspicious of Mark at all. If anything, I was somewhat excited to finally be meeting him since I've been hearing about him for 2 years. But then the way Jordan and Mark acted at dinner is what convinced me that there's something going on there other than just being best friends. I honestly don't even know how to describe it except to say that I've never seen 2 people act more obviously like they were in love with each other. They literally would not stop touching each other. They were constantly touching each other's arms and shoulders, and at some points they were actually even holding hands. They completely left me out of the conversation and were laughing about inside jokes, and every time they'd laugh they'd do this thing where they'd put their foreheads together, or that was when they'd be holding hands. And then also they were just looking at each other in a way that I didn't feel comfortable with at all. It was honestly even worse than the touching. It just wasn't how anyone would look at somebody they're supposedly just friends with. I'm 100% sure that every stranger looking at our table thought that Jordan and Mark were the couple and that I was her brother or something. I felt like a third wheel the whole time, and Jordan didn't even notice how awkward she was making it for me because she was way too focused on Mark and all the attention she was getting from him. And that's really not like Jordan at all. Usually she's a lot more considerate and would notice immediately if I wasn't having a good time or if she was accidentally being rude and excluding someone at the table. So it was genuinely really jarring to be sitting there with her and Mark and basically feeling like I didn't know my girlfriend at all. It was like he turned her into a completely different person who didn't even care that I was alive. So finally at one point, when Jordan got up to go to the bathroom, I just said to Mark, "So, are you into my girl, or what's going on here?" Mark, "Nothing's going on at all. That ship sailed a long time ago." Me, "What does that mean? Did you guys date at some point?" Mark, "No, we never did. And then when she left the church, we both knew it meant that we were never going to. And we've accepted being in each other's lives as friends. There's nothing else going on at all." Me, "That makes it sound like the only reason you're not together is because she left the church and all." Mark just shrugged. Me, "Well, what if she came back to the church? Would you marry her?" Mark, "Oh, she's not going to do that. You might as well ask what would happen if a bicycle had 6 tires. And so then when Jordan came back to the table, Mark said to her, "OP wants to know if we'd be married if you weren't a godless heathen." Jordan, "Why did you 2 call your mom while I was gone?" And then she and Mark both just laughed about it and changed the subject. So because of dinner and the conversation and everything else that I've written about in this post, I really feel like Jordan and Mark are in love with each other and not just best friends like they say. And the only reason they aren't together is because they can't compromise about their religion. I think Jordan thinks that because she's okay with that decision, she expects me to be okay with being her second choice. And in the meantime, she's actually secretly wanting to be with Mark. So that makes me think that I should probably obviously just have self-respect and break up with her because I shouldn't be in a relationship with someone who would rather be with somebody else. But then the problem for me is that our relationship has been so perfect and Jordan has always treated me so well except for this one night. The only time she's ever acted like this was on the one occasion that Mark was around in person. Normally, even when she's talking to him all the time, she's never made me feel this way. So on the one hand, I'm wondering if maybe it doesn't matter what Jordan's feelings are for Mark as long as he isn't going to be around. It doesn't actually seem to affect our relationship, so maybe I just need to cool off and go back to trusting her that they are indeed only friends, even if it seems to be true that they have complicated feelings for each other. Or should I just end things? Update, November 10th, 2023. I talked to Jordan on Wednesday night. The TLDR update to the situation is that I didn't break up with her. After we talked about everything, I feel like that would be too much of an overreaction for what's actually going on. I do still think I was right to be upset about what I saw happening at dinner on Saturday, and Jordan didn't disagree with me about that. But I think I did jump to the wrong conclusion that it meant that she secretly actually wanted to be with Mark more than she wants to be with me. Now that we've talked it out, I don't think there's a reason to end what's otherwise the best relationship I've ever had. And I'm glad that I didn't just immediately trust my instincts because there was more going on with the situation that I didn't really understand that Jordan has since told me, and now I do feel like she can be given some grace in this situation, assuming nothing like this ever happens again. So, thanks for the advice, especially for everyone who told me to just talk to her before I made a big decision. So when we talked, I decided to take the main piece of advice that I got from everyone and start by telling Jordan that my feelings were hurt by the way she treated me at dinner with Mark and then see how the conversation went from there. Turned into a very long talk, so I don't want to try to remember exact quotes and get them wrong. But here are the important things. I repeated to Jordan some of what I wrote in the post and said that I felt excluded by her and Mark, especially because they were being overly touchy-feely with each other to the point where it made me uncomfortable. Jordan seemed surprised, like she didn't even notice that she and Mark were touching each other that much. But then she thought about it and said that I was right and apologized. She said that Mark is always really touchy with everybody and not just her, I asked, and so she didn't even think about it. But that she wished I would have said something at the time because she didn't realize they were being that obnoxious. I said that was part of what bothered me because I thought that normally she would have noticed something like that, but she was acting so different around Mark and not paying any attention to anything else, including how I was feeling, that it honestly just made me question which one of us she cared about more or if she cared about him as more than just a friend. Jordan apologized more and said that she could understand why it would look that way to me, but that she loves me and cares more about me than anyone else in the world and that she didn't mean to act like that or make me feel that way. She said that she was trying to not make Mark feel like a third wheel because of being a single guy out with a couple, but obviously it backfired and just made me feel like the third wheel instead, which wasn't what she wanted to do either. After that, Jordan explained a lot to me about her history with Mark, and basically, as she explained it, she said that she fully admits she cares about him as more than just a normal friend, but she says that it's not in a romantic way. She said that's why she always specifically refers to him as her best friend and not just as her friend, and said that she would use the phrase "he's like my brother" if it weren't for the fact that she once had an actual brother, R.I.P. So she won't use that phrasing for anyone else. According to Jordan, the main thing that happened to make her and Mark so close was that when she was 17, she tried to kill herself, and that was actually when everyone else in the community stopped talking to her and Mark was the only person who didn't. For the next couple of years until she moved, he was literally her only friend, and she said that he checked on her every single day to make sure she stayed alive, which is also when they got into the habit of talking on the phone so much. And also apparently, during this time, Mark's parents thought they were dating and made a big deal about how they shouldn't be, and that's why she made that remark during dinner. Apparently, calling Jordan a godless heathen is something that Mark's mom said. I did tell Jordan that Mark basically said to me that he thought the two of them would be married if she had stayed in the church, and I asked her if she thinks that maybe Mark is in love with her even if she doesn't feel the same way. She said definitely not, and I don't think she was being dishonest. I really don't agree with her, but I think she genuinely believes that Mark isn't into her in any way apart from friendship. Her opinion of the situation is that she also thinks she and Mark would eventually have gotten married if she had never left the church or moved, but from her perspective it would have been more because of peer pressure than anything else, and she doesn't think it would necessarily have been a good thing. She thinks Mark was just being honest about that, and that possibly from his perspective, he thinks he and Jordan would have made a good couple, but he's probably thinking that because he's just assuming that in that scenario she'd be the perfect church wife, so there's no reason why they wouldn't be a good couple. But then the big thing that happened at the end of the conversation is that Jordan told me that Mark is coming back through our city on his way home from this trip, and so she was going to invite him to hang out with the two of us again. But she said that if I'm going to be uncomfortable with him around, then she won't ask him. A lot of people were saying that if she didn't offer to cut contact with him or to cut down on contact with him, it meant that she valued him over me. So the fact that she brought up on her own that she wouldn't invite him to dinner with us again because I didn't like it seemed like a really good sign to me. Based on everything else that she said, I do understand why she didn't offer to totally stop being friends with him, and I wouldn't expect her to after what she told me about what happened when she was a teenager. So now I'm deciding to take Jordan's word for it that although she and Mark are weirdly close, it's for the reasons that she explained to me and not because she's in love with him. I think the fact that she was immediately apologetic instead of defensive was good, and the way she explained everything did make sense to me. I don't necessarily trust Mark, but I do think I can trust Jordan. But I'm going to watch and see if it seems like she's still talking to him as much as she used to, or if anything changes or sounds different. I'm not going to be controlling and tell her that she can't talk to him or that she has to talk to him less, but I want to see if me talking to her about all of this causes her to act any differently at all. I'm kind of thinking she might realize on her own that the way Mark acts towards her actually does seem like he likes her as more than a friend now that I've brought it up. But I don't know. Could be that things just go back to exactly the way they were before, and I won't know if anything has actually changed until the next time Mark is around in person. But I don't think that's something I should keep worrying about before it happens. Relevant comments. Comment. OP. Did she acknowledge that the touching by her was inappropriate? I do not see how she could not have recognized how touchy they were in her lack of physical touch with you. Like many others have said, I am not sure Jordan was being completely honest with you. Did you ask her how she would have felt in a reverse situation? If the three of you meet again, you might want to think about excusing yourself to go to the bathroom or something during the meal and instead hide and film their interaction while you are gone. See if Jordan changes how she interacts when you are not there. I say to capture it on your phone because then you have it to show her if you break up. If she interacts appropriately while you are gone, then she may have gotten the message. She should also start limiting her interactions with him, phone/text, because that relationship is not healthy and so should have to deal with that. If you two get married, it needs to be dealt with now. OP replied. She did acknowledge that all the touching was inappropriate, yes. When she actually thought back on how much they were doing it and how over the top it was, she was embarrassed and realized she shouldn't have started acting like that just because Mark makes it seem normal. I didn't ask her how she'd feel in the reverse situation because it seemed like she got it immediately as soon as I told her how it made me feel. If the three of us are ever together again, I'll definitely be watching everything, but I don't think there's a chance of that happening for a while now. Now on to the next story. Story 4. Fiancé and stepson stole over $120,000 from my accounts to fund ex-wife's expensive lifestyle until she ditched them. Now, they want back in my life. Before I tell you guys the situation, I want to add some background info. I am rich. I met George, who has a young son named Manny. George told me how he loved his ex-wife, Serena, but she cheated on him with another man. We dated and eventually got married. Serena reached out to George a few years ago saying how her new husband had ditched her for a younger model. George told me about it and I felt bad about her, but that's about it. George and Manny have cards to our joint savings account, where mostly I put the maximum money since I earned 3 times more than George. Manny and I used to have a good relationship, but then out of nowhere, he would get angry at me for no reason. He would taunt that he couldn't wait for his dad to leave me. This made me think and I got a bit suspicious. I checked my account statement, which I never do actually, and found out that my fiancé and stepson had scammed me out of $120,000 in total, at least. I confront George and he refuses to admit it, but I threaten legal action against him. And this is when he says he has been cheating on me with his ex-wife and basically funding her entire lifestyle with my money. I kick both of them out after finding this truth. Well, in just a week, I receive a call from George and Manny begging me to forgive them. I scoffed and asked him why he was calling me and not his mother. This is when they tell me how the ex-wife left George and Manny after she realized that she couldn't take any more money from them. She didn't want to marry George again or have a family, like George and Manny were dreaming about all along. I informed them that they have lost any and all chances to ever be a family again. Hey everyone, I never thought I would be sharing my story here, but recent events have left me feeling like I need to get this off my chest. So here goes nothing. I was engaged to this guy named George, who I believed was the perfect man for me to marry. Turns out our engagement was a complete facade, and I have made the difficult decision to end it after just 3 months. Right now, I'm managing to keep it together, but I fear that once everything settles, I'll be overwhelmed by panic. You see, I come from a family with generational wealth and a background in entrepreneurship, which is why we all have very comfortable lives. However, this hasn't exactly been a boon for my romantic life. I have found that many men I have encountered have tried to take advantage of me or manipulate me to be with them for their own financial gain. While I'm not extravagantly wealthy, I do live comfortably. I met George during a social outing, and despite initially not being interested in anything beyond friendship, I was drawn to him because of his genuine affection and respect towards me. He slowly swept me off my feet with his charming smile and kindness. He had a young son named Manny, 15M, who I adored from the get-go. George told me all about his ex-wife, Serena, who had cheated on him and ran away with a wealthier guy. This had completely broken his heart since they were college sweethearts. I felt for the poor guy, you know? Our relationship blossomed quickly, and we enjoyed a fulfilling sex life and a generally positive dynamic. I genuinely believed I was in a loving and exciting partnership with him. I decided to finally open up to him about my family's wealth. Initially skeptical, he was taken aback when he decided to look up information about my family online. George became upset, feeling betrayed that I hadn't disclosed this aspect of my life earlier, accusing me of a lack of trust. I explained to him that many people in my past had pursued me for my family's wealth, which is why I was cautious about revealing it too soon in relationships. While he eventually grasped my perspective and seemed to accept it, looking back, there were a few red flags. Like when he would ask me to buy extravagant gifts for his son or ask me to pay for our luxurious vacations. He hated his job and would always complain about how much he hated working and joke, saying how with the wealth I had, he could easily become a house husband. There were moments when he would make remarks insinuating that I had it easy and didn't understand the value of hard work. This deeply offended me because despite the privileges my family provided, I had worked diligently to carve out my own path in my career, which allowed me to sustain myself independently without relying on my parents' financial support. Unfortunately, George had always failed to appreciate this aspect of my life, which, in hindsight, should have raised some concerns for me. When my parents finally met George, it was evident that they were less than impressed. Throughout the meeting, George seemed fixated on asking my parents about their assets and what they could potentially offer him, which immediately raised red flags for my family. Adding to their reservations, George didn't offer to contribute to the dinner bill, leaving my father with the impression that he might not be financially responsible or considerate enough to support me adequately. Moreover, my mother expressed concerns about George's past as a divorcee and his status as a father, cautioning me to tread carefully in our relationship given my lack of experience in motherhood. Unfortunately, I paid no heed to their warning as I was in love and thought that we could all be a family one day. During all this, I have to mention that I never really had an especially great relationship with Manny. Even though I loved him and wanted him to accept me, he has always perceived that I'm attempting to take the place of his mom, even though it's a role I have never really aimed for or tried to fulfill. I have only wanted to be a responsible role model for him and tried to let our relationship develop on his terms since he was nearly an adult when we met, but he was not interested. Manny made it very clear that he had no desire to know me much or have any kind of relationship with me other than a friend. He told me that he would always be respectful towards me no matter what. I was okay with this and always felt like his resentment stemmed from the fact that he simply did not want his father to move on, and this is why he hated me. Despite my genuine efforts to extend help, there was never any positive change in our relationship. I have attempted various approaches, such as giving him gifts, discussing relatable topics, and sharing my own experiences from when I was his age, but nothing seemed to resonate with him, and he would just be polite, but that's it. George would always tell me to be patient and would assure me that Manny would eventually come around. After George and his ex-wife's divorce, Manny would spend 4 days with his mother and 3 days with George. I felt sorry for the child since it must be hard to have divorced parents, so I understood his resentment towards me. As months passed and our relationship became stronger, George and I decided to take the next step and moved in together. This is when we opened a joint account together, where I was depositing 40% of my salary while he was depositing 30% of his salary since he earned considerably less and also had to pay for childcare for Manny. Our joint account was used to take care of our expenses around the house, including date nights and vacations, while I kept money in my separate personal account. I also got engaged. For the engagement ring, he bought me this beautiful diamond ring, saying how he had saved up money over the years. I honestly didn't care about the ring because for me, wealth wasn't a prerequisite for marriage. I simply wanted someone who truly cared for me. But clearly, it was a prerequisite for him since he started to change once we were engaged. I never pried into his financial details because I understood that he wasn't particularly well off, and I didn't want to embarrass him. This is when my parents told me firmly that I needed to sign a prenup agreement. I got pissed at my dad, saying how he could ever suggest something like this, but my dad insisted, saying that if George really loved me, then he would have no problem signing the agreement. That night, I brought up the topic in front of George and joked about how my dad had serious trust issues. To my surprise, George jumped out of his seat and started asking me angrily if I was thinking about it. I was a bit taken aback and told him honestly that I was still thinking, but it was just a piece of document anyway, which would make my parents trust him more. However, George started yelling, saying how I was insulting him for even bringing this up and that I should trust him if I wanted to spend the rest of my life with him. I told him that I agreed with his point and I did trust him, but my inheritance comes from my parents, and they needed this assurance to feel better, so he should have no problem agreeing to it. George yelled that he had researched what my family owned and that with the money we had, he could live a comfortable life without working for a single day. He started to say how I should not be so selfish and as my partner, I should fight for him with my parents and make them forget about the prenup. This pissed me off as it reminded me a lot about my past experiences, so I immediately made it clear to him that up until now, I could have let the prenup go, but seeing his reactions, I won't proceed with the wedding until he signs the papers. His eyes widened in shock as I continued to say that I wouldn't relinquish control over my finances to anyone. While we would be paying for bills together through our joint account and I was even willing to offer support to him and Manny during tough times or emergencies, I wasn't interested in completely funding someone else's lifestyle. Past experiences have taught me to be cautious, so I made my intentions clear without any hesitation. George tried to argue with me, but when he saw that I wasn't budging, he begrudgingly agreed to my boundaries. He told me that he was ready to sign the prenup agreements in order to make me trust him and asked me to send him the papers so he could look it over. This made me happy, and in a few days, despite the initial tension, he eventually signed it without much resistance. My parents were also satisfied with this. Fast forward a few weeks. I noticed George would spend a lot of time in the washroom, which was quite unusual. I would hear the shower running for at least 40 to 45 minutes. This struck me as a bit odd, especially because he would always take his phone with him during this time. George would always tell me how he was out of money or how he needed to cut down on expenses. He would frequently ask me to borrow some money, and being my partner, I never suspected any foul play. This continued to happen for a while. However, I noticed he had started buying new clothes and accessories more frequently, which didn't align with his claims of financial constraint. Additionally, he became more secretive about his phone, often guarding it closely and keeping it on silent mode most of the time. Also, Manny, who usually used to be the sweet kid, started acting out of character, being rude and disrespectful towards me. He started to blatantly ignore my presence, even when I was trying to have a conversation with him. During dinner once, Manny wanted to eat pizza, so I ordered it for him, but somehow the delivery guy messed up the order, and we got someone else's order who had ordered a pineapple pizza. I immediately called and complained, and the restaurant offered to deliver us our order in some time. However, Manny got extremely pissed when he came downstairs. Even though I told him that the delivery guy had messed up, he started telling me how I couldn't do one single thing right, which surprised me because this wasn't my fault in any way. Like I said, he was never this disrespectful, and these incidents continued to happen several times, where he would act like I didn't exist, talk over me, or outright blame me. I just couldn't figure out what had gotten into him and thought maybe he was going through his rebellious teenage phase. The only time Manny would talk to me properly or pretend to be nice was when he would want something from me, like money for a school trip or to go out on a date. I would sometimes even give him my card so he could spend money comfortably on his girlfriend. One day, I asked my fiancé if I could borrow his laptop for a conference call. As I opened his laptop, I noticed a Telegram tab open, and to my surprise, it was my fiancé chatting with his ex-wife. I had seen her pictures before, so it was easy for me to recognize. They were exchanging "I love you" messages and sending selfies to each other throughout the day. I scrolled back through the conversation history and realized that this had been going on for a few weeks and he was sending her money. My heart was beating so fast, and I had a sinking feeling in my stomach as I processed what I had discovered. Quietly, I took screenshots of the conversations and closed the laptop. I remained silent for the rest of the day, still in shock from what I had found. Later, when my fiancé had gone to bed, I carefully reviewed the conversations. It became apparent that he had reconnected with her around the same time we got engaged, when she had texted him first, saying how her new guy had left her with nothing and she was now living in her parents' basement. She continued to write how she missed George and wished she could still be with him. Their messages had quickly turned inappropriate, with George admitting how he was still in love with her and they had decided to meet up. Also, then a few days later, she had started complaining to him about how she hated meeting up with him at a hotel and she wished they could have their own private oasis. Reading this made me throw up, but what worried me was that George had agreed and told her how he would try to find an apartment that he could lease so they could meet up without being worried about being spotted in public. This sentence made me stop. I reread the sentence as a wave of shock and betrayal washed over me. As their messages continued, I noticed that she would constantly ask him for money, and he was always ready to pay. She would then send him photos of her in lingerie, saying how she shopped all these things with the money that he had sent her. This absolutely infuriated me, so I quietly got out of bed to open my laptop and checked on our joint account. And boy, was I in for a shock. Although there were no big transactions, there was a constant withdrawal of $4,000 every 2 days for the past couple of months. I then checked my account statement and found the same. I checked the timing and date of withdrawals from my account and found that a lot of these withdrawals had been done usually on the days when Manny had my card. I calculated all the withdrawals done, and the total came to around $120,000. So I immediately went through the screenshot of George's messages again to try and find any more evidence. I then saw a message that his ex-wife had sent to George last week, saying how Manny was so happy to see his parents back together and that this was a sign for them to be a family again. My eyes widened in shock as I finally realized that George and Manny had been swindling me out of $120,000 all behind my back. My hands are shaking as I'm writing this. I am at a loss for words. I am completely numb. I don't know what to do or what to say to him. Do I confront my fiancé about this? Do I leave him? Or do I talk to him and then forgive him? I have invested so much time and energy into this relationship. I can't believe this has happened to me. I don't know if I can leave my fiancé after he and his kids scammed me out of $120,000. Update 1. First of all, thank you all so much for your words of support. I am sorry I couldn't answer every one of you, but I did read every single comment. My eyes are still swollen from crying all night, and for those calling me weak or a fool and making fun of me, I would like to say that I hope this doesn't happen to any of you because the feeling of betrayal is hard to live with. I still don't understand how George and Manny could betray me this way. I haven't confronted George yet. This morning, I acted like everything was normal, although he did see my swollen eyes and asked me if anything was wrong. I quickly told him that I was on my period, which is usually very painful, so hopefully he doesn't catch up to me. After he went to the office, I drove to my parents' place. At my parents' house, I mustered up the courage to tell them everything that had transpired. Their initial shock quickly turned into anger and concern for my well-being. My dad, usually calm and composed, was visibly furious at George's betrayal, and he told me how he had always suspected that he wasn't a good man. I guess I should have listened to my parents. He insisted that we needed to consult our family lawyer to explore our legal options and see what could be done to address the situation. We are also going to be hiring a private investigator to gather evidence of George's infidelity and deceit so that we can have concrete proof of his actions that would strengthen our case when it comes to pursuing any legal action against him. I know it's a daunting and emotionally taxing process, but I know I can't let George's betrayal go unanswered. He not only violated our engagement but also stole a significant amount of money from me, betraying my trust in the worst possible way. As difficult as it is, I'm determined to stand up for myself and seek justice for the pain and suffering he has caused. Update 2. Hello guys. So in the last few weeks, a lot of things have happened. First of all, the PI has given us significant evidence through photographs and videos that George and his ex-wife are indeed meeting up and that George has rented a one-bedroom flat for her. She probably lives there because he visits her there frequently. Manny would also sometimes visit her with George as if they were one happy family. But what shocked me was that on some days, the PI had caught photos of George's ex-wife with other men also when George wasn't around. This made me laugh at the irony, seeing as how George was cheating on me while she was cheating on George and clearly using him. She would also go out shopping regularly and clearly had a crazy shopping addiction with her multiple luxurious bags that she would come back holding. What angered me was that all of her lifestyle was basically funded by me. Since finding out about all this, my parents and I have been discussing the legal options and have concluded that the best possible action would be for me to confront George, tell him that his game is up, and threaten him with taking him to court. So hopefully he agrees to pay me back all the money, and we can peacefully settle this out of court. However, if George refuses, we will go the legal way, and I know for a fact that my dad would love to go scorched earth on him. So yesterday, after dinner, I confronted George about everything. His eyes widened in shock as he stammered to justify his actions, but I told him how I knew everything and I had pictures as well, so there was no point denying it. He looked at me dumbfounded. I then firmly told him that I knew he and Manny had taken a total of $120,000 from my account as well as our joint account, where I paid 60% of my entire salary, to fund his ex-wife's lifestyle and even bought her an apartment to live in. His eyes flickered as he looked at me nervously while I continued to say how my parents and I were ready to legally sue him, but we would be willing to let this matter go only if he paid me back all the money. This seemed to anger George, and he started saying how this was impossible for him and that I knew about his financial conditions. I remained calm and told him that if he didn't pay me back now, then I would make sure to bury him in court such that he would then be forced to spend all his money on hiring a lawyer to stay out of jail. He stared at me for some time and asked if I was serious, and I nodded, saying how my lawyer was ready to file the case and all I needed to do was give him a call. This seemed to scare him straight, and he started to say how we could reach an agreement where he would pay me a fixed amount every month. I told him that my lawyer would be contacting him about it and he better sign the papers or he would see me in court. He nodded slowly. I then asked him to pack his bags and get out. George then asked me if I didn't want to ask him why he had cheated on me, and I told him that I honestly didn't care. I could see regret flashing across his face as he got up to pack his bags and leave. I will be honest, I felt so powerful at that moment, watching him obey me after he knew that he had been caught red-handed. He left my house in some time and I was finally free. I haven't cried a single time since yesterday. I am glad that he cheated on me before we got married and I didn't have to waste any more time on him. I also sent a message to Manny since I did not get a chance to confront him about how George and I have broken up and that I know everything about what they have done. I told him how his dad has to spend the rest of his life paying me back to avoid going to jail, and I hope that he would learn from his lesson and be a better man than his dad. Manny has definitely read my message, but he hasn't dared to reply back. I hope this can be my last update regarding this, as I want to move on from this matter. Update 3. Well, I am back with a short but very interesting update. It's been 4 months since I logged into this account. Something happened today that I thought might interest some of you people who have been asking for an update, hence I'm writing this. Guess who showed up at my door today? George and Manny. They looked disheveled standing at my doorstep. I was shocked to see them since I had blocked both of them since I wanted absolutely no communication with them. The last time I saw George was when he came to meet my lawyer to sign the agreement to pay me back every month. My dad had shouted at him for 10 minutes about how worthless and spineless of a man he was while George quietly bore it since he deserved it. Honestly. George had been sending me regular paychecks every month as decided, but that was it. I had no other contact with him and didn't appreciate him showing up here out of the blue because I didn't know what their intentions were. I didn't want to open the door for them, but I had cameras, so I decided to talk to them through the mic. I asked them why they were here and warned them that if they had any ill intentions, then I would call the police. George told me how they were here just to talk and that I had nothing to worry about. He begged me to let them in, but I refused firmly. Defeated, he then started to say how sorry he and Manny were for what they had done, and they were here to beg me for a chance of forgiveness. I listened to him in disbelief as Manny joined in to say how he was wrong to think that his parents were perfect for each other, and that it was actually me who was a better partner to his dad. I still didn't understand why or what they were doing here, so I informed them that I didn't need any sort of apology and that I had moved on, so I would appreciate if they left. George pleaded, saying how I have no idea how these last 4 months had been for them, how he had found out that his ex-wife had cheated on him yet again, how his ex-wife, once she realized that he couldn't fund her lifestyle, had quickly broken off things with him. It seems like karma wasted no time, and I couldn't help but scoff at their plight. They told me how all she wanted was a fat bank account and never wanted to be a family again. They continued to tell me that they wanted me back in their lives so we could all continue to be a happy family like we were before. I laughed hearing this and told them that they had lost any and all chances to have a normal family when they both decided to betray me. I told them firmly that I was done with their lies, so they needed to move on and try to scam someone else. George protested that they were not trying to scam me and that he would continue to pay me back all the money he had taken, but I asked him to just stop talking. I informed them clearly that I was done with this conversation and that I would be calling the police if they didn't leave. Manny apologized and told me that he just wanted to say how sorry he was. I told him while I appreciated that, I didn't want them both to ever come to my house again or I would get restraining orders. Slowly, George backed away, and I watched both of them leave, their shoulders slumped in defeat. With a sense of relief, I realized just how far I had come in the last few months. I don't think I am the weak person I was anymore, and I will never allow anyone else to take advantage of me ever again. Now on to the next story. Story 5. My mom worked multiple jobs to raise me after my dad passed away. But now she's sick, and my wife gave me an ultimatum to choose between them while secretly being pregnant. A little background. My mom and dad were both orphans. My dad died 2 weeks before I was born. My mom didn't really have a support system, so it was just the two of us. I never lacked anything because my mother worked all her life to give me the life I have today and didn't even have time for herself to start a new life again. She did all the little jobs possible so that we didn't miss anything. She deprived herself of food to give me food. I had very good clothes while she had none. I saw her make sacrifices again and always with a smile. Frankly, I always thought she was an angel dressed in a human body. The only time she yelled at me was when I was 16. I saw her getting sick and working at the same time and I wanted to help her by finding a job. But she was angry and told me it was not my job to take care of her. It was up to her to take care of me. She wanted me to get really good grades to get into the best universities. It was the only way I could protect myself when she couldn't anymore. Even at university, she didn't want me to work. I had to be focused on my studies, but she wanted me to volunteer so that I could be an adult who could do something with his hands. I met my wife there while we were both volunteering. My wife is a good person, but she was never close to her parents or her siblings. Yet, she adored my mother since she met her. There were times when I thought she loved my mother more than she loved me, and we laughed about it. Deep down, I think she was looking for the bond between mother and daughter that she did not have from her mother. When I finished my studies, I found a job. We moved in together, but she wasn't comfortable that I call my mom every day. Remind you, those were 10 to 15-minute calls. But eventually, she stopped bringing it up. 2 years later, I bought a house for my mother because we never had a house in our name. We lived from apartment to apartment. So, for all the sacrifices she made, it was, for me, the least I could do, and it was non-negotiable. That's where the problem started with my wife, then GF. She wanted me to think about us first. I told her my dream had always been to buy my mom a house since I was little, and that's what I had to do. But she complained about it to my mom. My mom didn't even know I bought a house for her as it was supposed to be a surprise for her birthday. She was uncomfortable receiving the house because of my wife and told me that wasn't necessary, that we could use it for us when we got married. I was furious. I told my mother that the house was for her, that she could do with it whatever she wanted, but it was time for her to think about herself first. Our relationship survived that. We got married and then we had our own house. Our life was going well until 2 months ago, when my mother fell ill. I wanted her to come and live with us so that I could take care of her, but my wife didn't want to. I then decided to rent an apartment with my own money right next to our house so that I could be close to her and go there to take care of her. But even that idea didn't sit well with my wife. My wife and I don't have children yet. We both work. I usually come home at 6 p.m., but since my mother is sick, I go to see her and come home at 8 p.m. On weekends, I see her for 1 or 2 hours, and the rest of the time I spend with my wife. We go on dates. I always accompany her in her hobbies, even though she never went to mine. 2 days ago, she told me that she thought about it and she thinks I prioritize my mother too much. She told me that I had to choose between my mother and the life I want to build with her. The truth is that I never made her feel that way. We both work, but I'm the one who cooks and I pay a person to do the housework. I make sure I do the dishes she likes. She didn't even know what I like to eat because I never complain. I run her baths, give her massages, flowers. I write her poems that I hide somewhere in the house for her to find. We go on a trip 1 weekend a month. I earn much more money than her. I told her to keep her money for herself, and I take care of all the bills, even hers. I always make sure to listen to her and consider her opinion. And I think I am easygoing because I can change my mind to accommodate hers. But I realize that she tries to completely dominate me, and the only subject where I don't give her a choice is my relationship with my mother. So I'm going to have a talk with her and put some very clear boundaries. If she doesn't want to, well, we're going to divorce. Update 1. Hi guys, I keep getting messages asking me for an update. I wanted to do it sooner, but couldn't spare time to do it properly. First of all, I would like to thank everyone for the comments and DMs in my last post. I tried to reply to everyone, but I couldn't. I read you all, though. Before confronting my wife, I had time to reflect and I came to the conclusion that I will never again let anyone in my life dictate the relationship I should have with my mother or the time I should dedicate to her. So I decided to answer the ultimatum. But first, I wanted to know if there was another reason why she gave me this ultimatum. She replied, "Nope." I asked her, apart from what she blamed me for, was there something she wanted to tell me but couldn't? She said there was nothing and asked me to come to the point. So I told her I wanted a divorce. She remained frozen. I think she was shocked because she wasn't talking. She was just staring at me. I told her everything that was on my mind, that our values are too different. I was going through the worst moment of my life. My mother was sick. We did several tests with her. We still don't know what she's suffering from. We don't know her family medical history because she was an orphan. It makes me anxious to know that overnight I could find myself alone in the world. Yes, alone in the world because in these difficult times, all I needed was her support. But if my own wife thinks that I should give less attention to my mother who is sick and who needs me more than ever, it's time to go our separate way. She still didn't say anything. So I told her I'm going to a hotel for now and we'll discuss later how we're going to separate. I took some of my things and left. The next day when I went to see my mother, she figured out something wasn't right. But I was not going to tell her I was separating from my wife because she could not bear our relationship. Especially since she was sick like that. I didn't want to add more torment to her. I never discuss my marriage issues with my mother anyway. So, she does not know our problems and honestly, she adores my wife too much. And my wife behaves as if she was her own mother. So, I was not going to tell her what she was thinking behind her back. My mom ends up telling me that my wife didn't come by that day. Yes, my wife, who asked me to reduce my contact with my mother, was seeing her every day and I never asked her to do anything for my mother. She calls my mother Mom. When she gets sick, she used to go to my mother so she would take care of her. It used to hurt me because it's as if I couldn't take care of her. But she said that this was not the same. The intentions of a mother are different. I told myself that it was her way of creating a mother-daughter bond that she never had and I understood her. She even said her mother used to tell her that she was not supposed to be born, that she was an accident, that she almost aborted her and regrets not doing it. Only a monster could say that to her child. So I never said anything whenever she wanted my mother's attention. Besides, I received enough love to share with whoever wanted. My mother, after I left home to study, became a foster mom for children. She always did until 2 years ago. I have always loved each of the children with whom I still keep in touch and whom I consider to be my siblings. Once a year we all went on vacation together for a week. The children, my mother, and my wife. I generally take 2 months of vacation, of which the 6 weeks I devoted to my wife. But the 2 weeks that I devote to my mother and the children, it was too much for my wife. Anyway, I'm rambling. So when my mom told me she didn't come to see her that day, I went back home because I was worried. I found her in the bathroom with her clothes and red eyes like she was crying all along. Seeing her like that was unbearable. I helped her out. But this woman who has so much pride collapsed in front of me with a lot of crying. I don't know if it was an hour or 2, but she kept crying, calmed down, and then crying again. I just stayed silent. She ended up telling me that deep down she never wanted me to be any less involved in my mother's life. She was always jealous of our relationship. She was always jealous of the attention my mother gave to the other children. She knows that it wasn't rational, but she couldn't help constantly striving to be number one in my mother's heart. It was kind of a competition for her. So, when I wanted to take care of my mom, she didn't want me to be the one taking care of her. I was honestly furious without saying anything, of course, but I wondered if she was a psychopath or something. We are talking about a person who is seriously ill, and she is thinking about her damn competition, even if it means sabotaging the relationship I have with my mother and putting us in a situation where I wanted to divorce her. She told me that she was very jealous of me and that she would have liked to be in my place. If she had to choose, she would have even chosen to be my mother's child rather than my wife, even if I was the love of her life and the only man she ever known. She also told me that even if the world falls apart around me, I will remain stoic, that I live as if I don't need anyone and that I give everything to others, but I don't know how to let others reach me. And she never managed to get there. Only my mother could get there. At that moment, I did not know what else to say. I was hooked on this idea of competition so that I did not immediately grasp the scope of these words. But I still listened to her to the end. I put her to bed until she fell asleep. Then I went to sleep in another room. In the morning, she was acting like nothing happened. She was being herself. She said, "I don't have to pity." I told her it was out of love. She was still my wife. She left to work and I did the same, but decided to stay at the hotel for the time being. During that time, I wondered what I could have made her saying act so that she could think about that. Deep down, I think she's right. It's a defense mechanism I've had since childhood. I've never stayed in one place longer to make friends. It was heartbreaking every time we had to move. Between my 5 and my 15, I moved more than 50 times from apartment to apartment, from hotel room to hotel room. And since then, I think I have always lived my relationships like a squat. I never unpacked and settled in because I knew at any moment I could be kicked out. But I thought with my wife I acted differently, but I guess not. So, I thought maybe we didn't need to go that far. What we needed wasn't divorce, but therapy. Then this happened. A little over a week after our discussion, I was called from the hospital. My wife had been hospitalized. She apparently did not feel well. I went to visit her, but she didn't want to see me. If you see the eyes I saw, I've never seen so much hate in just 2 eyes. I told her bestie so she could have her support system because she didn't want me there. I told my mom. She asked me what I had done to my wife so that she ended up in the hospital and that I should not stress a woman who was pregnant. I said, "What?" She told me my wife told her and asked her to keep it a secret because she wanted to tell me herself when she was ready. I don't know what was going through my head between anger that it was my mother who told me, or happiness at having to be a dad for the first time, and total confusion at the surreal situation. I went to my wife and told her I knew, but she looked at me again angrily and told me she had lost the baby and it was my fault. In an instant, I just got the news my wife was pregnant but kept it from me. That I was going to be a dad and that we lost the baby and that she was accusing me of having caused something that I did not even know. She asked me to leave and I left. I always wanted children very early on. My wife wanted to put her career first. I understood and accepted. I've been trying to convince her for years but without success. Now she gets pregnant. She doesn't tell me anything. She talks to my mother about it and she says I caused her miscarriage. Since then, She says she didn't tell me anything because she wanted to first confirm if I could deal with all the responsibilities I give myself and raise a child at the same time. I don't understand her, and I admit since then I have a fierce hatred against her. I don't know how to look at her without having anger in me, and I don't want to hurt her with my words. I take care of her at home, but we don't talk to each other. I'm not going to stay with her. It's not possible. I started a session with a psychologist. He told me that patience was my best weapon, that I shouldn't make a permanent decision on emotions that could be temporary, and that I should take time to see if there were things to salvage. Here is where I am. I don't know if I'll do another update. I took days off to be there for my wife and for my mother, but I'm feeling pretty depressed and I just want to get away from all this right now. Thank you, in any case, for giving me your point on your first post, for your support or your critics. Update 2. Hi folks, it's been a while. I didn't intend to post again after my last one, but even though it's been months, I still get support and people asking me where I am in my life. So, I think I owe you at least one last update because your comments and DMs helped me a lot during a time I needed it the most. I don't know if it's going to be long or not, but let's go. About my wife, after she had a miscarriage, yes, she was definitely pregnant. I had to take care of her because she couldn't do it on her own. After what happened, I had nothing but anger and hatred in me. But as I said last time, if something is fragile enough to break, you have no choice but to treat it gently. I didn't want her to break. I didn't want to leave her in the worst time of her life. So I did my duty as a husband. Despite everything, her mental state was getting worse. She thought she was still pregnant and she was talking to herself. One night, she was delirious, mistaking me for her father and thinking that I was going to hurt her. I had to call the emergency room. Then, after examination, a psychiatrist advised me to have her hospitalized. That's what I did. She spent 6 weeks there. She was diagnosed as having borderline personality disorder. Doctors suspect delusional disorder, too. And they also suspect that she was heavily abused as a child, but that's all they were allowed to tell me. She didn't want to see anyone, especially her family. She suggested that we communicate through letters, and every time I went there, I took her letter. Then the next day I dropped mine. It's crazy. I have the impression that in 2 months, I got to know her better than the 10 years I spent by her side. That reminded me how good a person she used to be despite her flaws. She used to travel to participate in the construction of schools, wells, anything that can help people who lived in precariousness. She didn't just give money. She helped out with her own hands. She's the type to help a foreigner who doesn't speak the language catch his train until she misses her own train. Honestly, she was like a gold mine with lots of resources and kindness in her. Although we had money, we used to enjoy taking public transport to remember the time when we were penniless and enjoy life just because having each other were enough. We would travel without taking money and challenge each other to know how far we will get. That was the best moment of our lives. We were very close and in love. We thought nothing could break us. What has changed since then? We tried to figure it out in the letters we give each other. We talk about many things. I won't go into details. She owned up her mistakes and I owned up mine. She takes full responsibility for the consequences of her actions. She apologized for how she treated me and knew that the only possible outcome is that we divorce. She needs to heal and work on herself. She said she has a long way to go and it wasn't fair for me. She said that given her condition, I wasn't going to talk to her about a divorce. She had to do it herself. There are some battles she needs to fight on her own. Otherwise, she will never be the best version she could be. She doesn't know how long it's going to take. But if she gets there and I haven't moved on, then she'll be happy to start again with me. I've always lived with the idea of fixing broken things rather than throwing them away. But that doesn't work with humans. You can't fix someone unless they want to be fixed. And I wouldn't have had the strength to fix someone because I'm putting all my remaining energy into trying to fix myself. If my wife hadn't made the decision she made, I myself would have proposed a divorce. Paradoxically, it was because she made the decision she made that I saw that there was hope for us. I then offered her a separation rather than a divorce. And a year from now, if we still want to get divorced, we'll get divorced. If we trust that we could be in a healthy relationship, then we'll get to know each other again, communicate, and try to do things differently. She agreed and said that was what she hoped. When she got out of the hospital, she didn't want us to meet because if we saw each other, she wouldn't have had the strength to keep her resolutions. For my part, I had not yet let go of all the negative feelings following the events that happened before her hospitalization. So, in the end, it was best for both of us. We chose to continue to send each other letters, and that's fine with me for now. She was able to see my mother. She wrote me what my mother told her, that she will always be a mother figure to her despite the bad decisions she made. That she didn't have to compete for her love, because she already had it, and that's one thing that will never change. She asked me if I was okay with her being in touch with my mother. I told her it was up to them. She didn't need my consent. However, she was not likely going to see my mother too often because I had decided to go to another country for my mother, so she could benefit from one of the best hospitals in the world, which is in Europe. About me, I've been in Germany for almost 1 month now. We are from France and I'm learning to delegate work. It's a resolution I made during my therapy. I needed therapy and it was especially you guys who convinced me. I will always be grateful to you. The therapy sessions were so heavy and tiring that I didn't have the strength to do much after leaving my therapist's room, but it got better over time. I am currently working remotely. I go back to France once a week to settle things at work and continue my therapy sessions because I don't want to change therapists. I managed to devote time only to myself, which is actually good. One of my foster brothers wanted to come with us to Germany since he manages to work remotely, too. He is a great help. In short, I'm getting better and better. About my mom, this is probably the most difficult subject to discuss. And I admit that I don't really want to talk about it, but I also think that talking about it here is good practice to be able to talk about it in my life. A few years ago, we lived from apartment to apartment, hotel to hotel. This is one of the worst times of our lives. The state always found us a place to sleep because we were a single mother and a child. It wasn't stable because we had to change places every time, but it was better than sleeping outside. My mother was, and still is, a very beautiful woman. It happened that she received sexual proposals for an apartment right in front of my eyes. I don't know what she went through with my dad, but she never wanted to be with another person because she says death doesn't stop a loving relationship from continuing. There was an association that used to take care of us by always finding for us a place to stay at night. One day, one of the people who were in charge to find us places to sleep wanted us to stay in his apartment, the time that they find us a better place because we were in a very unsanitary hotel. My mother didn't want to go, but I convinced her to go because the idea of sleeping warm in a good bed was all I could think of. But after we had dinner at his place, he started making a move on my mother, who stopped him right away. He told us it was either that or we get out of his house. So we left. We went back to the hotel where we were, but our room was already taken. There was nothing we could do, at least that day. So we chose to sleep outside. Trigger warning. Gang R. A. P. E. At some point, while sleeping, we were woken up by a group of men who were trying to my mother. They hit me so hard that I was even afraid to try to help my mom. Some other men who I guess came back from a party heard the screams and came to help us. Our attackers fled. I always said that my mother was almost our pet. That's what I always said, and I ended up believing it. But my mother was indeed our A-P-E-D. Before my eyes. I finally said it. My mother was our A-P-E-D. Before my eyes, and I couldn't do anything. If that day we had thrown ourselves into each other's arms and cried together, maybe things would have been different. But she got up, took my arm, and told me that this place was not safe, that we had to look for a safer place. That was all. We never talked about that day again. We carried on with our lives as if nothing had happened. Things got better eventually. She worked hard so that I could be successful. She invested all the money she earned in her entire life on my project. And today, I owe her the company I created. How did she manage to survive the hell she'd been through ever since I came to terms with the idea that she was our A-P-E-D? All I wanted was to tell her about it, but it's not about me. It's about her. She's the one who experienced the worst. I would so much like to talk to her about it, but I don't know what good can come out of it after so many years. That's it. That's all. As for today, her condition is improving. The future looks brighter than it did a few months ago. Well, I think that's all. This will be my last post. To all who have followed me in those hard times, I thank you from the bottom of my heart and wish you the best in your life. May what you have left to live be better than what you have already lived. Now on to the next story. Story 6. My wife's brother wore an identical tuxedo to our wedding. Then, I caught him cheating on his wife at a coffee shop and found out my wife knew about the affair. I'm a 42-year-old construction manager who married my wife, Rachel, 4 years ago. Rachel comes from what everyone in town calls the perfect family. Her parents have been married for 45 years and still hold hands when they walk. Rachel has 2 brothers who couldn't be more different from each other. The older brother is Marcus, 44. He's a high school football coach, married to Olivia, 40, for 12 years with 3 daughters aged 10, 8, and 6. Marcus is what most people would call a family man. He coaches his daughter's soccer teams on weekends, takes them camping during summer breaks, and puts in extra hours at school fundraisers to make sure his family has everything they need. The younger brother is Ethan, 35, who works as a freelance photographer. He travels a lot for work, taking pictures of wildlife and landscapes for nature magazines. He's always been the free spirit of the family, with his long hair and stories about sleeping under the stars in remote mountain ranges. He recently got engaged to Lucia, a botanist he met during an assignment in Costa Rica. When I first started dating Rachel 6 years ago, I noticed something odd about her family's dynamics. On our 3rd date, I took Rachel to a local brewery I'd discovered. While we were sampling different beers, I spotted a man with sunglasses and a baseball cap pulled low, sitting in a corner booth, constantly looking in our direction. I pointed him out to Rachel, suggesting we might want to leave if this person was following us. Rachel squinted, then burst out laughing. She waved at the person, who immediately ducked behind a menu. Rachel turned to me and said there was nothing to worry about. We continued our date, but that mystery person stayed in my mind. It wasn't until months later, when I was officially introduced to her brother Marcus, that I recognized him as the stalker from the brewery. Apparently, the siblings had a habit of checking out each other's dates without introducing themselves. This was just the first glimpse into the unusually tight relationship between the 3 siblings. Rachel, Marcus, and Ethan shared every detail of their lives with each other. Daily calls, group texts that never stopped buzzing, and weekly dinners that couldn't be missed for any reason. They knew each other's banking passwords, medical histories, and relationship problems before their own partners did. At first, I found this closeness charming. Coming from a fractured family myself, parents divorced when I was 7, step-siblings I rarely speak to, I admired their bond. But as my relationship with Rachel progressed, the charm wore off. Rachel would tell her brothers about our arguments before we had even finished having them. When I received a medical diagnosis for a minor condition, Marcus called me with advice before I had even told my own father. I raised my concerns with Rachel several times. She dismissed them, saying I couldn't understand because I didn't have siblings who actually cared about each other. There was some truth to that. My own brother hadn't even responded to my wedding invitation, so I backed off, accepting that this was part of the package deal with Rachel. Then came our wedding planning. Unlike most couples who fight over venue choices and guest lists, Rachel and I worked together seamlessly. We both wanted a medium-sized ceremony at a local vineyard, agreed on a reasonable budget, and even liked the same style of decorations. The planning process actually brought us closer together. I thought I'd found someone who truly understood partnership. The wedding day arrived, and everything was perfect, until Marcus showed up in a tuxedo identical to mine. Not similar, identical. Same designer, same cut, same boutonniere. When I first saw him at the vineyard, I thought someone was playing a prank. Rachel beamed when she saw us standing together. During her vows, she included a special section thanking Marcus for always being the example of the kind of husband she wanted, and how fitting it was that the 2 most important men in her life should look like twins today. I stood there, listening to my bride talk about another man during our wedding vows. The guests shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Olivia, Marcus's wife, stared straight ahead with a fixed smile. My parents exchanged glances. Even Rachel's parents looked embarrassed. At the reception, I pulled Rachel aside and asked why she hadn't told me about the matching tuxedos. She looked genuinely confused by my question. In her mind, this was a wonderful surprise that I should appreciate. When I explained that I felt upstaged at my own wedding, she told me I was overreacting and that I didn't understand family traditions. The tuxedo incident cast a shadow over our honeymoon. We argued repeatedly about boundaries and family involvement. Rachel finally admitted that Marcus had always wanted a formal wedding, but when he married Olivia, they had eloped because they couldn't afford a big ceremony. Olivia had gotten pregnant shortly after they started dating, and they rushed to get married before the baby arrived. Marcus had always regretted not having wedding photos and a proper reception. So Rachel had decided to share our wedding day with her brother, giving him the experience he had missed. She couldn't understand why this bothered me. After all, she reasoned, it didn't take anything away from our marriage. Ethan reached out to me after the wedding, apologizing for his sister's behavior. He explained that while he loved his siblings, he recognized that their closeness sometimes crossed normal boundaries. Olivia also texted me, offering to meet for coffee and compare notes on marrying into the family. Those gestures meant a lot, and I decided to move forward and try to make the marriage work. For the next few years, things improved. Rachel made a conscious effort to create boundaries with her brothers. We established a no family calls after 8 p.m. rule and a weekend trips without checking in policy. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. Despite these improvements, I never fully got over what Marcus had done at our wedding. I watched how he interacted with Olivia at family gatherings, often talking over her, dismissing her ideas, and prioritizing his sister's opinions over his wife's. Olivia seemed to have accepted her position in the hierarchy, but I noticed how she would withdraw during family dinners, checking her phone or finding reasons to help in the kitchen. 3 months ago, I took a half day from work to meet some former college roommates who were passing through town. We met at a coffee shop on the outskirts of town, about 30 miles from where Marcus and Olivia lived. As my friends and I caught up over espressos, I spotted Marcus walking in with a woman who definitely wasn't Olivia. I ducked my head, not wanting a family interaction to cut into my limited time with my friends. Marcus didn't see me. He and the woman sat in a corner booth, talking intently. I couldn't hear their conversation, but their body language spoke volumes. She touched his arm frequently. He leaned in close when she spoke. They shared food from the same plate. I told myself this could be innocent. A colleague, a friend, a cousin I hadn't met. But then they moved to leave, and I saw Marcus place his hand on her ass as they walked out. Through the window, I watched them kiss beside their cars before driving away in separate vehicles. My friends noticed my distraction and asked what was wrong. I made an excuse about remembering an unfinished work project. After they left, I sat in my car in the parking lot, trying to process what I'd seen. Marcus, the perfect family man, was having an affair. I decided to follow the woman's car. She drove to a small apartment complex about 15 minutes away. I wrote down the address and her license plate number. Over the next week, I did some investigating. Her name was Danielle, fake name, 38, a physical therapist who had worked with Marcus when he injured his shoulder coaching last year. Based on social media activity and coffee shop receipts I'd managed to glimpse, they had been meeting regularly for at least 6 months. My first instinct was to tell Rachel, but I hesitated. The siblings had such a twisted sense of loyalty that I couldn't predict how she would react. Would she believe me? So I developed a plan. I learned that Marcus and Danielle met at the same coffee shop every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon, the days when Olivia took their daughters to gymnastics and dance classes. I befriended a barista named Kyle by leaving increasingly generous tips. Eventually, I explained that I needed his help to expose a cheater. He agreed to assist, probably more for the extra money than moral reasons. Kyle helped me organize a customer appreciation day at the coffee shop with games and prizes, scheduled for a Thursday afternoon when I knew Marcus and Danielle would be there. I then invited the entire family to meet me at that coffee shop for what I described as a surprise announcement. Rachel was suspicious but intrigued. Olivia readily agreed, mentioning that her daughter's classes had been canceled that day anyway. Rachel's parents and Ethan, with his fiancée Lucia, all confirmed they would come. Marcus was the only one who declined, saying he had work commitments. I pretended to be disappointed but said I understood. When Thursday arrived, I gathered everyone except Marcus and drove them to the coffee shop. Rachel grew increasingly tense as we approached, repeatedly checking her phone. I asked if something was wrong, and she quickly said no, but her knuckles were white around her phone case. We arrived just as the coffee shop's couples challenge game was starting. Kyle had arranged for Danielle and Marcus to be selected as contestants. They were answering questions about each other while my family walked through the door. The final question asked how long they had known each other, and Danielle answered, "Since last April, when Marcus came in for physical therapy on his shoulder." Kyle then presented them with the grand prize, a gift basket and a framed photo Kyle had taken of them together on a previous visit, with a caption about them being the coffee shop's most regular Tuesday to Thursday couple. Olivia stopped cold in the doorway. Rachel's parents looked from Marcus to Olivia and back again. Ethan muttered something that sounded like a curse. Lucia gripped his hand tightly. Marcus saw us all standing there, the color drained from his face. Danielle, not yet understanding what was happening, accepted the gift basket with a bright smile. Then she noticed the frozen people by the door and the way Marcus was staring, horrified, at our group. Olivia turned and walked out without saying a word. Marcus ran after her, abandoning Danielle with the gift basket still in her hands. Rachel's parents followed them outside. Rachel stayed rooted to the spot, staring at Danielle with an expression I couldn't read. I went outside to check on Olivia. Marcus was trying to talk to her beside her car, but she kept shaking her head and backing away. Rachel's father stood between them, his hand firmly on Marcus's chest, keeping him from getting closer to Olivia. Rachel's mother had her arm around Olivia's shoulders. When I returned inside, I found Rachel and Ethan arguing intensely in hushed voices. When they saw me, they stopped abruptly. Danielle had disappeared. The drive home was silent. When we arrived, Rachel exploded. She accused me of humiliating her family on purpose. I asked why she was more concerned about Marcus's humiliation than Olivia's betrayal. Rachel wouldn't meet my eyes when I asked if she had known about the affair. Her silence was my answer. I packed a bag and drove to a hotel. Rachel called repeatedly, but I didn't answer. Ethan texted me, asking to meet for a drink. We met at a bar near my hotel, where he confirmed my suspicion. Rachel had known about the affair for months. Marcus had convinced her that his marriage to Olivia was essentially over, and that they were staying together for the kids. He had claimed that Olivia understood the arrangement. Ethan hadn't believed the story, but Rachel had chosen to accept Marcus's version of events. Ethan apologized for not telling me sooner. He had urged Marcus to end the affair and had tried to convince Rachel to stop enabling their brother, but the older siblings had always stuck together against him. I returned home after 3 days. Rachel tried to explain her actions, saying she had been protecting her brother while he figured things out. I asked her what would happen if I decided to figure things out with another woman. She had no answer. Over the next few weeks, the family fractured along new lines. Olivia filed for separation and took the girls to stay with her parents. Marcus moved in with Rachel's parents, who surprisingly took his side, saying that marriages go through rough patches and Olivia was overreacting. Ethan and Lucia firmly supported Olivia, often babysitting the girls so Olivia could meet with her lawyer or just have time alone. Rachel and I spoke only when necessary and slept in separate rooms. I couldn't look at her without seeing her complicity in her brother's cheating. Update 1. 2 weeks after the coffee shop incident, Rachel asked if we could talk. I braced myself for more excuses or accusations. Instead, she asked if Marcus could stay with us for a while. Her parents were starting to get frustrated with his presence, especially since he wasn't making any effort to reconcile with Olivia. He couldn't stay with Danielle, as apparently Danielle had broken things off after the public exposure, and he needed a place to stay. I laughed. Couldn't help it. The request was so absurd that laughter burst out before I could control it. Rachel looked wounded by my reaction, which only made me laugh harder. When I finally regained composure, I asked her if she was serious about wanting her cheating brother, the man who had ruined his family and was partly responsible for the current state of our marriage, to live in our house. Rachel didn't see the problem. Marcus was family, she argued, and families stood by each other no matter what. I pointed out that Marcus hadn't stood by Olivia and Rachel hadn't stood by me when she kept her brother's secret. The argument escalated. Rachel revealed that Marcus had told her Olivia was emotionally abusive and distant, which had driven him to seek comfort elsewhere. According to Marcus, Danielle had been a sympathetic ear who understood his struggles in a way his wife never had. I told Rachel I would only consider letting Marcus stay with us if he admitted these abuse allegations to Olivia's face in front of the entire family. If Olivia was truly abusive, it should be addressed openly so everyone could support Marcus appropriately. Rachel jumped at this condition, immediately calling Marcus to set up the meeting. Olivia agreed to attend, bringing her parents as support. The meeting was scheduled for the following evening at Ethan and Lucia's house. When the time came, everyone gathered in Ethan's living room. Olivia sat calmly. Marcus slouched in a chair opposite them, while Rachel's parents stood behind him. Ethan and Lucia served drinks but stayed silent. Rachel kept glancing at me nervously. I opened the discussion by explaining that Marcus had alleged emotional abuse in his marriage, which he felt justified his relationship with Danielle. I then invited Marcus to elaborate on these allegations directly to Olivia. Marcus shifted uncomfortably. He mumbled something about feeling unsupported and misunderstood. Olivia watched him steadily, not interrupting. When pressed for specific examples of abuse, Marcus grew defensive and vague. Eventually, he admitted that Olivia hadn't been abusive. He had just felt neglected because she focused so much on their daughters. Rachel looked stunned. Her brother had lied to her, and she had believed him without question. Olivia finally spoke, calmly listing all the ways she had supported Marcus over their marriage. Taking on the majority of childcare, maintaining their home, working part-time to supplement their income while he pursued his coaching career, and postponing her own ambitions. She described how Marcus would disappear for hours without explanation, gaslight her when she questioned discrepancies in his schedule, and prioritize his siblings' needs over his family's. By the end of the meeting, Rachel's parents apologized to Olivia. Ethan looked vindicated. Marcus left alone, refusing Rachel's offer to stay with us that night. Rachel cried for hours. She had built her identity around being part of this perfect, close-knit family. And now she had to face the reality that her brother wasn't the man she thought he was, and their family wasn't what she had always believed. Update 2. A month passed. Marcus found an apartment across town and started therapy, allegedly to work on himself, before attempting reconciliation with Olivia. Rachel and I began marriage counseling, trying to rebuild trust and establish healthier boundaries with her family. Olivia filed for divorce, seeking primary custody of the girls with generous visitation for Marcus. The proceedings were remarkably civil, with both parties prioritizing their daughter's well-being. Olivia even defended Marcus when her parents spoke negatively about him in front of the children. Rachel's parents struggled to redefine their relationship with their son. They had always placed him on a pedestal, and watching him fall from grace forced them to confront their own role in enabling his behavior. They started attending family therapy sessions with Ethan and Rachel, noticeably excluding Marcus from these meetings. Ethan and Lucia moved forward with their wedding plans, though the family drama had cast a shadow over the preparations. They decided to have a small destination wedding with just a few close friends rather than the large family celebration originally planned. The most significant change was in Rachel. She started individual therapy in addition to our marriage counseling. Through this work, she began to recognize how her family's dynamic had shaped her understanding of relationships and boundaries. She admitted that she had always placed her brother's needs above mine because that was what she had been taught to do. One evening, she showed me her phone and the dozens of missed calls from Marcus. She had been limiting contact with him, setting boundaries for perhaps the first time in their relationship. Instead of dropping everything when he called with a crisis, she referred him to his therapist. When he showed up unannounced at our house, she told him he needed to call before visiting. These changes weren't easy. Rachel struggled with guilt and occasionally backslid into old patterns. Marcus alternated between respecting her boundaries and testing them, often claiming that she was abandoning him when he needed her most. During this period, I kept my distance from Marcus. We saw each other at necessary family functions but didn't speak beyond basic pleasantries. He never apologized for the wedding tuxedo incident or for putting Rachel in the position of keeping his affair a secret from me. Olivia surprisingly reached out to me. We met for coffee at a different shop from the one where the exposure had happened. She thanked me for bringing the affair to light, saying that while the revelation had been painful, it forced her to confront issues she had been ignoring for years. She had started a full-time position where she had previously worked part-time and was looking into completing the master's degree she had abandoned when she got pregnant with their first daughter. When our coffee cups were empty, Olivia checked her watch and mentioned she needed to pick up the girls from their dance class. As we walked to the parking lot, she paused by her car and extended her hand. "No hard feelings," she said. "What you did took guts." We shook hands, and I watched her drive away, struck by how differently things had turned out than I'd expected. That's where I am right now. Reddit, thanks for reading. Writing this out has been therapeutic. My relationship with Rachel is still a work in progress, but we're both committed to building something healthier than what came before. Sometimes it takes a family falling apart for people to see what needs to be fixed. Now on to the next story. Story 7. My best friend proposed to me in public while I was getting a caricature done. I laughed because we were never dating. He disappeared and was later detained by police. Frankly, I'm still in shock that this happened, so this might be all over the place. Bear with me. All fake names, etc. Jordan and I met in university 2 years ago. We both started at the same time, and because of our ages, we were both considered mature students, so we quickly became firm friends as we shared a dorm. We joke around together about us being old enough to be considered mature in our early 20s. We weren't on the same course, but given we lived together, we would hang out pretty much all the time whenever we didn't have a lecture. We joined a bunch of societies together, went drinking every weekend together, etc., etc. It was a pretty sweet gig because it meant we were at least never alone. Obviously, we made other friends both alone and together, but we were always each other's number one at the end of the day. At the moment, we're on spring holidays for Easter, and while we haven't hung out constantly, we decided to make plans to visit each other's hometowns because we're from very starkly different places. Today, we went to mine. Mine is a big city central. This morning, we went there and were wandering down the streets doing some sightseeing because he's never been. There's typically a lot of street sellers here trying to sell you everything from hot dogs to fluffy Pokemon hats. I decided I wanted to get a caricature done. I've never had one, and I thought it would be funny to get and hang over my bed when we got back for term. I asked Jordan if he wanted to get in, and he refused. No worries. So I sat down to get it done. They don't take very long, 5 to 10 minutes, so I stayed looking straight forward at the artist the entire time. He finished the caricature and I loved it, so obviously I turned to show it properly to Jordan. When I turn, though, I literally don't even know what to say. He's down on one knee holding up a ring box. I don't even really know what he said, if he did the whole, proposal speech thing, because I was so confused. I was barely paying attention. Remember, again, this is a super busy tourist city, so this has drawn a mini crowd now coming over to cheer us on. I couldn't help but burst into laughter, to be honest. I thought this was some kind of odd prank type thing. We never have been prankster types or whatever, but I couldn't come up with a reasonable explanation, so I just laughed and laughed and laughed until I looked at Jordan, and he looked genuinely heartbroken. So obviously, I asked him something along the lines of, "You are not being serious." This is the only thing I remember him saying. He shut the box, stood up, shrugged, and said, "I guess not anymore," and walked off. This left me standing pretty awkwardly in this gathered crowd of people, a lot of who were giving me dirty looks, which made me incredibly uncomfortable. The plan was to meet back up at a hotel that we had booked rooms next door to one another, so I figured that's where he's going and headed back that way. But he's not there, so I wait and he still doesn't return. I text him out of concern. This was at 1:15 p.m. It's currently 6:20 p.m. as I'm writing this, just asking if he's okay. He responds with a long message back which I would post because it's a not read, but I won't out of respect for his privacy. in which he basically accuses me of leading him on, asking why I didn't break up with him sooner, saying I had publicly humiliated him, and that he thought I loved him the same way and that he felt our relationship was strong enough to consider taking the next step. Now, this is completely out of left field. I literally have got no idea where in the world he's got this idea from. The closest we've ever physically been is a hug, hello, and goodbye. I've never even jokingly flirted with him for exactly this reason. I've had too many friendships collapsed because they can't tell the difference between serious interest and joking banter in friendships, so I've been extra careful to not. We've never kissed, never been on a date, never had sex. I do not find him physically attractive, and I wouldn't want to be in a relationship with him. I don't understand where on earth he's got this idea that we are. This isn't something he's ever brought up before this, and I'm genuinely bewildered. He hasn't returned to the hotel yet. I periodically knock to check, and I've been listening out for him walking up the hallway or anything. Nothing. I haven't responded to the long paragraph because, honestly, I don't know how to. I'm just so stunned and taken aback that I genuinely have no idea where to go from here or what to do. I haven't told anyone I know in person yet, mostly because I don't want to bring this up to people who know Jordan. So here I am, turning to strangers on Reddit instead. What in the world do I do? Update 1. Hey, I'm not dead. I'm back at my parents' house at the moment, and I'll be staying here until school picks back up in a bit instead of traveling around. It's nice to be home. Anyways, Jordan did, in fact, not come back to the hotel. I stayed up until 1 a.m. before falling asleep, and he didn't return. When I woke up the next day, the hotel staff let me know he had checked himself out at about 6 a.m. I did end up responding to his big long text. I took everyone's advice and told him that I was sorry it didn't go as he had expected, but that I wasn't sure where he got the impression we were together. I said I'd be happy to sit and have a discussion about it all so we could make sure we're on the same page. He was not happy about this at all, and he again went off a bunch of the same type of thing he'd said in his first message. It didn't really seem to be going through his head at all. Even in these new texts, he kept referring to this all as me breaking up with him, despite me explicitly telling him we are not and never have. Again, all his messages were very clear and coherent, even if what he was saying was not based in reality at all. He wasn't sending paragraphs, just sentences in really quick succession, which was blowing my phone up. He told me he didn't want to meet up with me to talk because I had ripped out his heart and crushed it in public. I did ask him for specific instances he could recall between us that made him think we were dating, but he completely ignored the question and just kept going on and on about how hurt he was that I was breaking up with him and how he felt his world was ending. He said he loved me more than anything and felt so confident that I had too, which is why he felt so certain about proposing to move our relationship along eventually. To be honest, I grew pretty tired of the conversation and stopped responding because it was just going around and around in circles. Me asking where he got this idea, him ignoring this and telling me how hurt he is, I'm breaking up with him over this, etc. He went on and on, saying he thought it would be a ring I like because it was my favorite gem, ruby instead of diamond. This got me wondering how much he actually spent on this damn thing. I didn't look very clearly at the ring, so I couldn't tell if it was something super expensive or not, and that he had been working up the courage to do so for a while and figured doing it when I was at home would make it more special. For a while, he was just talking to himself in my texts because I wasn't responding anymore. When I checked back about 20 minutes later, I had something like 60 messages from him. Granted, they were all one sentences. At the very end, he apologized and told me that it didn't matter anyway because I wouldn't see him around anymore. Obviously, I was concerned, so I asked for clarification. He said that he was going to drop out of university and go back home because he couldn't deal with the shame. That's where our conversation ended. I didn't really know what to respond to that. As it stands now, I don't really know where Jordan is. I didn't ask him, which is my bad. I'm not sure when we will talk again. I'm sorry this is quite a boring update. Unfortunately, I can't excite everyone with and then he turned up at my door and then he sent me flowers, or whatever. Feels a lot is unanswered. I still don't know where he got the idea we were dating from. He hasn't explained that, so I'm sorry I can't give everyone that answer. I haven't reached out to his family yet. I did consider it, but if he's not having a mental health crisis, I don't really want to involve them unnecessarily. Mini update, so adding on. A lot of people said I should ask our mutual friends if he's ever brought this up before, ever suggested we were dating, etc. All of the people I've asked, granted it was only 5, said that they've not got a clue and he's never mentioned it before. Now, I don't know then if this is something that he's newly started thinking, if it's been something long-term, etc. Either way, in addition, I've also screenshotted all of his texts, etc. just in case. Reading back on them, now with a slightly less confused mindset, they read pretty manic. Still haven't heard back from his mom just yet. Update 2. Hey, it's me again. Still doing okay and hoping this will be the last update I need to make. Granted, I thought the last one would be the last. I did say I wasn't going to make another update unless something significant happened. That's why it's been a week, so I'm sorry for the silence following my update post. Jordan's mom did message me back on Facebook that same day. We had a chat for a little while. She's a really nice lady. She agreed, though, that this was incredibly out of character for Jordan, and in fact, she mentioned a few other things that she had noticed as being off about him in the last few weeks. Nothing crazy, just things here and she'd never known him to do or say. I spoke with her at length about Jordan's mental health and potential psychosis, and she told me that there is a history of mental illness on his dad's side, including a paternal uncle's suicide, but that she doesn't know all that much about it because they've not spoken to one another in quite a long while. Our conversation lasted about an hour. I showed her Jordan's texts, etc., and she agreed that they sounded quite manic, regardless of how coherent they were. A lot of people also asked if he had told our mutual friends and acquaintances that we were dating. I did message our mutual friends, our dorm mates, etc., and they all basically said they've got no idea what I'm talking about, so it seems he's just been sort of having these thoughts by himself without expressing them. I don't know how to get in contact with his close friends that we don't share, so I can't really ask them anyway. For a few days, that was it until yesterday evening anyway, which is where the big and positive, depending on how you see it, update comes. I got word from Jordan's mom that he had been detained under Section 136 by the police. For anyone not from the UK, or who like me doesn't know what that is, from what I can tell, it basically means he was suffering from an obvious mental health disorder in public with their behavior concerning enough that they're a danger to themselves or to others, and police think they need immediate and urgent care. What I know from here is pretty minimal. I'm not sure where he was taken to, but his mom said that he would be there for the day while they perform a mental health assessment, so I assume that's what they're doing today. She said that essentially he had been out in the streets yelling about things. She didn't specify what, and intimidating other people on the street. He was throwing things around and generally just causing a lot of issue. Police got called because people thought that he was drunk. They established he wasn't, not sure if that's just from how he was acting, breathalyzer, etc. I honestly don't really know how it works, and that's all I know. His mom and I again had a chat and we sort of assumed that mental health psychosis is likely, right? The rejection of the proposal probably set him into a spiral of getting worse in the last few days, bringing us to where we are right now. I do feel pretty awful about that. I'm doing my best not to blame myself, but it's hard not to feel like I caused it. Either way, he is currently with police, mental health professionals, etc., likely being assessed. I don't know how the system works, so I'm not sure what will happen beyond this point. If someone with more knowledge wants to chime in, please do. I'm hopeful, though, that this will mean Jordan will be able to get some help for whatever it is he is currently dealing with. My hope is therefore I won't need to update again and this can end here. I have yet to speak to the university about the situation just yet. Not really sure how to, if I should approach that, so I'm leaving it be for now. This has been a whole lot of emotions, and I really appreciate the help of everyone on my last 2 posts. Again, I won't update again now unless something major happens, but I highly doubt I will learn much more. If he gets diagnosed with anything, I'll see if I can find out what from his mom, and I'll add it as a small update to this post, though some form of psychosis is definitely looking most likely. I don't want to bother her while they're struggling with this though, so we will see. Thanks again, everyone, and thanks for following along. It's been really reassuring to have this support and people with way more understanding than I have to help me. Now on to the next story. Story 8. Grandparents found out that my dad gave my college fund to my stepsister after my mom passed away, so they gave me $1 million, but my dad showed up and demands I share it. I've read countless Reddit stories that made me wonder if such things could happen in real life. Then, suddenly, my own life spiraled into something that felt like a twisted, drawn-out drama too ridiculous to be true. I never expected to be here, trying to make sense of everything, but the recent events in my life have left me feeling completely lost. Maybe this community can help me untangle the mess. To make sense of the situation, you need to know a bit about my backstory. My mom passed away when I was 14 after a brutal and short battle with cancer. Her loss was like a wound that wouldn't heal. She and my dad were married for 16 years, and despite the hardships, they had a beautiful relationship. It's funny how I used to look at their bond and believe they would grow old together. Before she passed, she had the foresight to set up an education fund for me. She combined her life insurance with their joint savings, making sure that my future was secure. This wasn't just a small amount either. It was enough to cover my entire college education, and if I chose, even grad school. After her passing, Dad was completely shattered. For the first 2 years, he threw himself into his work, probably as a way to cope, and spent the little time he had making sure I was okay. I did my best to be there for him, even encouraging him to get back into the dating scene once I saw that his loneliness was weighing heavily on him. He wasn't the same anymore. Eventually, through a work event, he met Martha. She was 43, divorced, and had a daughter, Jenna, who was around my age, just 1 year older. When Dad started dating Martha, I felt a strange mix of emotions. On one hand, I was happy that he seemed to be moving on and finding a sliver of happiness. On the other hand, I wasn't sure what to expect from this new dynamic. I had heard enough horror stories about evil stepmothers and cold new families to be cautious, but to my surprise, Martha wasn't at all like those stereotypical stepmoms. She was kind, friendly, and never made me feel excluded. Jenna and I even bonded over a few common interests, though we weren't particularly close, just on friendly terms. At first, I thought things were going smoothly. Martha made an effort to include me, and Jenna didn't seem to mind sharing her mom with my dad. I let myself believe that we could become a real family. But as the months passed, I noticed subtle changes in Dad's behavior. He started spending more and more time with Jenna, attending all her events, taking her to games, and even helping her with college applications. Things he hadn't done with me. I tried not to let it bother me. Jenna didn't have her dad around, and I figured it was natural for Dad to want to step in and support her. But what hurt was how he was drifting away from me. It was as if he had forgotten that I still needed him too. It was little things at first. He missed one of my school plays because Jenna had a soccer game on the same day. Then, he forgot about a project I had asked for his help with because he was too busy with Jenna's extracurriculars. But the worst part was that when I brought it up, he acted like I was overreacting, brushing off my feelings as if they didn't matter. Then there was another incident that made me realize that I was on my own and Dad did not have my back at all. To be concise, almost a year ago, I got into a minor accident on Jenna's birthday. When Dad finally arrived at the hospital, 2 to 3 hours after he got the call, instead of showing the tiniest bit of concern, he was agitated that I destroyed Jenna's birthday plans and that because of me, they had to leave their dinner early. Anyway, after getting emotionally wrecked over and over again, I accepted the fact that things would never be the same between us. From that point on, I distanced myself from Dad and his new family. It wasn't just about the accident. It was about all the moments that had led up to it. The slow but steady realization that I no longer mattered to him the way I used to. My trust in him was shattered, and the little family we had left crumbled in the process. When I graduated high school a few months later, I had already come to terms with the fact that Dad wasn't going to be the support system I needed. I had already started looking into scholarships and part-time jobs to pay for college. But I never expected what came next. Dad, in his infinite wisdom, had taken my education fund, the one my mother had carefully built for me, and given it to Jenna. He claimed she needed it more and I would figure something out. He didn't even try to justify it. He acted as if it was the most natural thing in the world, like it didn't matter that the money was meant for me. I was beyond heartbroken. Everything I had worked for, everything my mother had saved for, was gone in an instant. It wasn't just about the money. It was about the principle, the trust, and the bond one thought I still had with Dad. My mom had poured her love and care into that education fund, ensuring that I would have a bright future free of financial worries. But Dad took that away like it was nothing. That money was meant to secure my future, and in a blink it was gone, handed over to Jenna without a second thought. The betrayal felt like a punch in the gut, leaving me reeling. It wasn't even about Jenna at this point. It was about the man I called my father, someone I had trusted and believed would always have my back. I couldn't even look at him after that. It felt like the final nail in the coffin of whatever relationship we had left. There was no coming back from this. I stopped speaking to him entirely, refusing to engage with the man who had taken so much from me. But what I didn't expect was for my grandparents to step in the way they did. My grandparents had always been my safety net in ways I didn't fully appreciate until that moment. They had watched quietly as my relationship with my dad crumbled over the years, never intervening unless absolutely necessary. But when they found out what my dad had done, something snapped. I had never seen them so angry, especially my granddad. He had always been level-headed, the calm and reasonable one, but not this time. My grandma, usually the peacemaker, wasn't far behind. They couldn't believe what my dad had done, and they made it very clear that they would not let him get away with it. After listening to my whole situation, out of nowhere, my granddad went to get his checkbook. There, in my hand, was a check for $1 million, signed and dated, ready to be cashed. I didn't know what to say. They said that this was always meant for me, just in case. I couldn't believe that they had been saving this for me all along, knowing that one day I might need it. They had always quietly looked out for me, even when I didn't realize it. The money was a safety net, one that I desperately needed after everything that had been taken from me. It gave me the security I thought I'd never have again. But more than that, it was a sign that I wasn't alone in this. I had my grandparents, and they were on my side, ready to help me pick up the pieces of my shattered plans. But, of course, Dad found out about the money. Somehow, he always seemed to know when things were going well for me. And instead of being happy that I finally had something to fall back on, he was furious. I remember the call like it was yesterday. He accused me of being selfish, of thinking only about myself, and demanded that I split the money with Jenna. He said it wasn't fair that she didn't have anything while I now had more than enough. The audacity of his words left me speechless. He had already taken what was rightfully mine and handed it over to Jenna without so much as a discussion. Now he wanted me to hand over this gift from my grandparents as well. I couldn't believe he had the nerve to even ask. I flat out refused. There was no way I was going to give her a dime. I had already lost what was meant for me, what my mother had worked so hard to ensure I would have. This money from my grandparents was my last hope, my only chance at reclaiming a future that had been stolen from me. I didn't know Jenna anything. I didn't know him anything. He had taken enough from me already. But Dad didn't see it that way. He went on this long emotional tirade, trying to guilt me into reconsidering. He said things like, "Your mother would be ashamed of you," and how I was letting her down by refusing to help someone who needed it. He threw my mom's memory back at me like a weapon, reminding me of how she had always been the kind of person to help others, even at her own expense. He painted this picture of her as the saintly figure who would have gladly handed over the money without a second thought, and he made me feel like I was betraying her by not doing the same. I'll admit, it got to me for a moment. I did start to doubt myself. I wondered if I was being too harsh. Maybe I was being selfish after all. My grandparents had given me more than enough to cover my education and then some. Maybe it wouldn't hurt to share a little. Maybe my mom would have wanted me to help Jenna out. The thought gnawed at me, filling me with guilt and confusion. But then I remembered the years of neglect, the countless moments where I had been sidelined and forgotten. I remembered the way Dad had acted like my feelings didn't matter, the way he had chosen Jenna time and time again, leaving me to fend for myself. And I realized that no, I didn't owe them anything. My mom had saved that money for me, and if she were here, I know she would have been furious at how Dad had handled everything. She wouldn't have wanted me to be taken advantage of like this. I stood my ground. I told Dad that I wasn't giving Jenna any of the money and that was final. He could call me selfish all he wanted, but I wasn't going to be manipulated into giving up the one thing that was mine. I wasn't going to be guilt into sacrificing my future for someone who had already taken so much from me. But even now, after all of that, I can't help but feel conflicted. It is also not helping that Jenna is texting me every minute of the day asking me to help her, and that she always felt we had a special bond. Due to all this, There's that part of me that keeps wondering if I'm doing the right thing. Am I being too harsh? Should I have shared the money, even just a little? After all, Jenna didn't ask to be in this situation either. She's just caught in the middle of all this mess, and maybe I'm wrong for holding it against her. Dad's right. My mom would be ashamed of me for not being more generous. But then again, how much is enough? How much more do I have to lose before I'm allowed to say no? How much more do I have to sacrifice before I'm allowed to prioritize myself? I don't know. Maybe I am being selfish. I am letting the hurt and betrayal cloud my judgment. But after everything that's happened, I just can't bring myself to give in. Not this time. So here I am asking for your perspective. Am I wrong to refuse? Should I be sharing the money with Jenna, even after everything? Or am I justified in standing my ground and keeping what's rightfully mine? I genuinely don't know anymore. Update 1. It's been a couple of days since I last updated, and a lot has happened since then. After everything went down with Dad, I decided to move in with my grandparents for a while. I needed a break from the toxicity and to be around people who actually had my best interests at heart. They've always been a huge support system for me, and right now, they're the only ones I trust. I told them everything in detail. How Dad had given away my education fund, how he demanded I split the money my grandparents gave me, and how he even tried to guilt-trip me by bringing up my mom. To be honest, I thought I was angry, but my grandparents? They were livid. It's like they were more infuriated than I was, and it really hit home that I wasn't just overreacting. I was right to feel betrayed. For those of you who asked, yes, these are my paternal grandparents. I think that's what makes this situation even worse for Dad. He knows his own parents are siding with me. That's got to sting, and frankly, he deserves it. He's been so blinded by his new family that he's forgotten who was there for him first. But my grandparents haven't forgotten, and they're standing by me, which makes Dad even more furious. They've been giving me a lot of advice, and one thing they insisted on was that I hire a financial advisor. At first, I wasn't sure, it felt kind of excessive. But the more they explained, the more I realized they were right. First of all, I'm young, and let's be honest, managing a hefty sum like this isn't something I'm prepared for. My grandparents are worried that without the right guidance, I could make some mistakes or, worse, end up losing it all. Secondly, given everything that's happened with Dad and Jenna, it's clear how easy it is to be manipulated and confused when emotions are involved. They said that having a professional manage things would help keep the situation clear and prevent anyone from trying to take advantage of me. I agreed with them in the end, and we're looking into financial advisors this week. That's not even the end of it, though. My granddad actually got into a full-blown argument with Dad on the phone. It started as a calm conversation, but the second Dad started justifying his actions, Granddad lost it. He basically told Dad that he was failing as a father, that he had completely forgotten about his own daughter in favor of playing happy family with Jenna and Martha. I wasn't on the call, but I could hear Granddad shouting from the other room. He was furious that Dad had taken what was meant for me and handed it over like it didn't matter, and he didn't hold back on calling him out for it. Dad, being Dad, didn't take it well. I think deep down he knows he messed up, but his pride won't let him admit it. Instead of apologizing or even acknowledging his mistakes, he doubled down once again, saying that Jenna deserved it just as much as I did and that I was being ungrateful. Hearing all this from my granddad was tough, but the part that stings the most is Martha. She stayed completely silent through all of this. I always thought she was a sensible, fair person. When she first came into our lives, I saw her as the mother figure that I needed. Even as a kid, I tried to make her feel as accommodated as possible. She was also very kind and understanding, and I honestly believed she would never support something so obviously wrong. But now, her silence says everything. She hasn't spoken up once, hasn't said a word to me or Dad, and I can't help but wonder if it's because there's a chance her daughter might get a huge chunk of money out of this. I mean, why would she rock the boat if Jenna stands to gain? It hurts, though. I expected better from her. I guess I should have known better than to expect anyone in that house to have my back. It's becoming more and more clear that I made the right decision by cutting them off, but it doesn't make the betrayal any easier to swallow. As for Dad, he's still on his high horse, acting like I'm the one who's done something wrong. He keeps trying to guilt-trip me, throwing around phrases like, family, and responsibility, but I've stopped listening. After everything, I'm not letting him manipulate me again. I just don't understand how someone who was once so devoted to me could change so drastically. I used to look up to him, but now I can barely recognize him. He's a stranger to me at this point. I don't even know if there's anything left to salvage between us. But one thing is for sure. I'm not giving in. Not this time. Update 2. I want to start by thanking all of you for your support. Honestly, it's hard to even describe how much it means, especially when everything in my life feels like it's spiraling. You all helped me see the situation for what it truly is, and it's comforting to know that at least some people have my back. So, things escalated recently in ways I didn't even expect. My dad showed up at my grandparents' house with Jenna in tow, and let me tell you, it was a scene. He came in guns blazing, accusing me of turning my back on family and trying to manipulate my grandparents against him. Jenna was standing there, all wide-eyed, not saying a word, like she didn't know why she was there. But I wasn't buying her innocent act anymore. Not after what had happened with the education fund. Any shred of doubt or guilt I felt about keeping the money was gone. There was no way I was giving her a single penny, not after this circus. Dad went off about how I was selfish and didn't understand the importance of family, which was rich coming from him. He was standing there in my grandparents' living room, the same man who had taken what was meant for me and handed it to Jenna without a second thought, now trying to guilt me into sharing the money they gave me out of their own savings. It was ridiculous. Then he did something I didn't see coming. He started making these veiled legal threats. He said since he's their son, he has a right to contest their assets and that I was poisoning them against him. He went on about how they were being manipulated by me, that they weren't in their right mind to make decisions, and he was going to make sure he protected his rights in court. At this point, I was fuming. My dad, who should have been focused on repairing our relationship, was more concerned about making a case for money that wasn't even his. He was acting like he had any claim to what my grandparents wanted to do with their own finances. It was the most selfish thing I'd ever seen him do. But my granddad wasn't having it. He shut down Dad's nonsense quickly. He told him straight up that if he wanted to pursue legal action, he was welcome to try, but he wouldn't be getting anything out of it. My granddad is well versed in legalities, and he made it clear that everything had already been settled years ago. My dad's wore out after that, and Jenna followed quietly behind him like a shadow. If there was ever any chance of me giving her part of the money, it's gone now. I'm done being the bigger person. I've lost more than enough already. My education fund, my dad's respect, my place in the family, and I refuse to lose anything else. Update 3. Hi again, everyone. I know it's been a little while since my last update, but things have been absolutely hectic on my end. Not only am I trying to get everything ready to leave for business school soon, but a lot has happened on the family front too. It's like the drama never stops. First off, after the huge scene my dad pulled at my grandparents' house, my grandma was livid. She's normally the quiet, more laid-back type, but this whole situation has made her show a side I haven't seen in a long time. She laid down the law with my dad in no uncertain terms. She told him that if he ever tried pulling a stunt like that again, they wouldn't hesitate to call the cops. The legal threats he's been throwing around? Yeah, she's not even remotely scared of them. She made it clear that we have the upper hand and there's absolutely no way he's going to scare them into anything. My grandparents are sharp as ever, and they're not about to be bullied by their own son. It felt good to know they were standing firm. But the most surprising thing out of all this? My stepmom, Martha, actually reached out to me. I wasn't expecting that at all. She sent me a text, which was already weird because we hadn't spoken since everything went down, and she asked if we could meet. At first, I assumed she was going to advocate for my dad and Jenna, trying to convince me to reconsider giving them part of the money. I wasn't in the mood for another guilt trip, so I told her no. But then she responded and said it wasn't about that at all. And guess what? It really wasn't. When I finally agreed to meet her, I could see right away that she wasn't the same Martha I'd known before all this started. She looked worn out, almost like she'd aged in just a few weeks. Since the fight with my dad, she started by apologizing. Apologizing for not stepping in when all this started, apologizing for not defending me when Dad took my education fund and gave it to Jenna, and for letting things spiral out of control. Honestly, I wasn't sure how to feel about it. I wasn't ready to just forgive her for standing by while everything happened, but at the same time, I could see she was sincere. Martha went on to explain that this whole incident had taken a huge toll on her, and she's seen a side of my dad that she never knew existed. She admitted that she tried to speak up several times, tried to tell him that what he was doing to me was wrong, but every time she raised her voice, my dad either brushed her off or flat out ignored her. He would tell her that all of this was for our family's benefit in the long run and that Jenna needed the money more than I did. According to Martha, my dad has become obsessed with the idea that he needs to secure Jenna's future, even if it means screwing me over to do it. The fact that he actually believes this nonsense, it's like he's a different person. She also told me that it wasn't just my dad. Jenna was fully on board with this plan too. Apparently, Jenna had been in on all discussions about my education fund from the start, knowing full well where the money was coming from. She never once hesitated or objected to taking something that wasn't hers. That was the final straw for me. Any doubts I had about whether or not I should share the money with her were gone. This girl didn't care about me or what I had lost. She only cared about what she could gain. Martha said that after my dad's meltdown at my grandparents' house, she started seeing things even more clearly. He had never been this angry or irrational before, and it scared her. She didn't sign up for this, and she never wanted to be a part of a family that treated one of their own children so unfairly. And when he started making legal threats against my grandparents, that was her breaking point. She told me that she's seriously considering leaving him because she can't deal with his behavior anymore. Honestly, I didn't know what to say to that. Part of me wanted to tell her to go for it, to walk away from the mess she'd helped create. But another part of me didn't trust her completely. She had stood by for so long while all of this was happening, and it wasn't until things started affecting her personally that she decided to do something. I wasn't about to forgive and forget just because she was having a change of heart now. I told her that I appreciated her apology, but it didn't change the fact that I was hurt by her silence. And as for my dad, there's no fixing that relationship. I'm done with him. Martha seemed to understand. She didn't try to push me or make excuses for my dad. She just said that she was sorry it had come to this and that she wished she had done more sooner. It was weird seeing her so vulnerable, but at the same time, I couldn't let myself get too wrapped up in her feelings. I've been burned enough already. After our meeting, I went back to my grandparents' house and filled them in on everything. They were just as surprised as I was that Martha had reached out, but they weren't convinced that she had no part in all of this. My granddad especially didn't trust her, and he warned me to be cautious. He said that even though she might be sincere now, she's still connected to my dad, and I should watch my back. I have to admit, he's right. As much as I want to believe that Martha is finally seeing the truth, I can't afford to let my guard down. On top of all that, my dad has been sending me more texts and emails trying to reason with me. He's still hung up on the idea that I owe Jenna something, that I need to share the money for the sake of the family. It's almost laughable at this point. After everything he's done, after all the hurt he's caused, he really thinks I'm going to cave and give Jenna a dime? Absolutely not. I'm done playing the role of the good daughter who just takes it and keeps quiet. I've already lost what was rightfully mine. My education fund, my relationship with my dad, and even the sense of belonging in my own family. I'm not losing anything else. Not my grandparents, not the money they gave me, and certainly not my peace of mind. Now I'm focusing on moving forward. I've taken my grandparents' advice and hired a financial advisor to help me manage the money. I'm still young, and I don't want to make any mistakes. Plus, with the way my dad's been acting, I wouldn't put it past him to try something shady down the line. I need to be prepared. Business school is coming up fast, and I can't wait to leave all this behind. It's time for me to focus on my future, one that doesn't involve my dad's manipulative games or Jenna's sense of entitlement. I've come to realize that I don't need them. I've got my grandparents and I've got myself. That's enough. Now on to the next story. Story 9. Stepmom won $1 million lawsuit and made trust funds for all her kids, including me. When she got terminal cancer, my bio mom started dating my dad to get the money. My 17F stepmother, Jane, is a wonderful, wonderful woman. She and my father got married when I was 4, and she's been a rock in my life ever since. My mother was always my primary caregiver, but up until that point, her relationship with my father was acrimonious, and I basically never saw him. Jane was the reason they developed a stable co-parenting relationship. She encouraged everyone having a good relationship with each other, and was always there to support me and my mom when things got rough. Jane was always a really hard worker. When she met my dad, he was living out of a hotel, and my mother was doing everything in her power to keep me away from him because she was petty and angry that their relationship didn't work out. Meanwhile, Jane had a great job, a nice house, helped my dad get back on his feet, negotiated a visitation schedule with my mom, who hated her for a long time, and made sure my dad sent us money every week because neither one of them could afford an attorney to negotiate child support payments. Jane had no reason to do any of these things, but as I got older, she made it clear that she loved me as much as she loved my half-brothers, who were born a few years later. I even have my own room in her house because at the time we lived with my grandparents and various boyfriends of my mom, and Jane felt that I needed a more stable environment than that. She's like the opposite of the evil stepmom. When I was 15, Jane won a big lawsuit against an airline company and got awarded upwards of $1 million. She used the money to build sizable trust funds for me and my brothers so that we would be taken care of later in life. Despite having a lot more money, she still wanted to live a fairly modest life, so she paid off the house she has and has been living there ever since with my dad. Sure, she bought a new car and they went on a few nice vacations, but she didn't blow all her money on stupid things, which I respected. About a year ago, things started getting really weird. Whenever I saw Jane, she seemed to look sicker and sicker, but no one would tell me or my brothers why, even though I know they knew. All we knew is that she was at the hospital a lot. Around the same time, my mom has been coming around my dad a lot more and acting really strange, basically like she was trying to romance him. Whenever Jane was in the hospital, my mother would insist on spending the night at their house and playing mom to my brothers, which was so weird to me because she never liked them or Jane. She'd be the perfect little housewife, and my mom is not like that at all. It was super fake. Worst of all, my dad started falling for it. I'm not stupid. I'm pretty sure they were sleeping together. I tried to shield my brothers from it, but they're not dumb either. I tried talking to my dad, too, but he insisted it wasn't like that. Then, a few weeks ago, my mom started talking about all the places she'd like to visit, how she wanted a new car, and was looking to invest, which is weird because my mom has been a bartender her whole life and has lived paycheck to paycheck since before I was born. She was acting like she was about to get a lot of money, which started to make me really suspicious. Between Jane being sick and my mom acting all nouveau riche, I had a lot of questions. Finally, I decided to visit Jane in the hospital and ask her about my trust fund. I found out that if anything happened to her, my dad would inherit all the money, including full control of the trust for me and my brothers. She asked me why I was so interested in the trust fund, so I told her what's going on with my parents and how my mom has been acting with my dad. I didn't want to, but after everything she did for me, she deserved the truth. It really hurt me to break her heart like that, especially once I found out that she was basically in hospice at this point because of irreversible kidney failure. She's only got a few more months. We both cried so much. Then, 2 days ago, everything came to a head. My mom stormed in, furious, and started arguing with my dad. Apparently, Jane met with her lawyer and changed the trust so that my dad would get nothing and all of the trust would be controlled by my step-aunt. My mom demanded to know how Jane found out about their relationship, and I came out and told them that I told Jane everything. I told them that if they wanted to play stupid games, they would win stupid prizes, and that I wasn't going to let them screw Jane over after all the help she gave my family when she didn't have to. My mom slapped me, and my dad just looked so defeated. Then my mom told my dad that she didn't really love him, that she was just pretending to so he would marry her and she could get all of the money. The worst part about it is that my brothers witnessed the whole thing, and now, on top of their mom dying, they have to deal with a cheating dad and his vindictive ex. Our whole family is in ruins, and I feel like it's my fault even though I know it's not. Yesterday, I visited Jane again and told her about the fallout. She apologized and said that she had to dissolve my trust fund to make sure my mother didn't get a hold of the money, but that as her oldest, I will inherit the house/property after she is gone, and that's worth more than the other 2 trust funds combined. My father won't get anything because she's going to divorce him before she dies. And honestly, I'm happy for her. She made me promise to take care of my brothers and told me that once I turn 18 this summer, I can kick my dad out of the house if I want to, and I fully plan to do that. BTW, I haven't talked to my dad since, and I can't even look at my mom. I can't believe they would conspire to do this to Jane after all this time. Just proof that they deserve each other. And I'm embarrassed that they're my parents. Once I turn 18, I'm gonna cut my dad out as much as I can and cut my mom out completely. I hope she rots. Meanwhile, I'm going to try and be at the hospital as much as I can until Jane passes away. Anyways, I just needed to vent. I'm really messed up about the whole thing and I feel super betrayed, although I can't even begin to imagine how Jane feels. I'm going to be so fed up when she dies. I can't even think about that right now. But at least she's not surrounded by people who just want to bring her down. Edit. Some people are asking a lot of the same stuff, so I'll just clarify here. My brothers. My plan is to use some of the estate money to fight for guardianship for my twin brothers so that they can live in the house while I kick my dad out. If I can't get guardianship, then I will have to let my dad stay in the house. However, once I turn 18, I will technically be an adult, so even if my dad leaves, I'm still legally able to be responsible for them. The only thing I won't be able to do is stop him from taking them if he leaves, but they will be 18 in 6 years, so even if they do have to leave, they will always be able to come back whenever they want. In a perfect world, my dad would just leave and let my brothers stay with me, which I'm sure my bio mom would be very supportive of because right now she hates all of us, and I doubt that will change anytime soon. The trust. From what I understand, my brothers will inherit 1/3 each of the estate, and the remaining 1/3 will be used to keep the house running until they turn 18. After that, it will be up to me if I want to keep the house or sell it. At that point, my brothers will still have money left in the trust so they can branch out or do whatever they want. Otherwise, I will not sell the house and just pass it on to them or keep it and maintain it myself, and they can just stay with me as long as they need to. Edit to the edit. So I just spoke to Jane, and she told me that the reason she dissolved the trust is because originally it was going to be split 3x between us kids, and my dad would inherit the house. She dissolved my third and switched it over to make it to take care of the house maintenance and instead put the house in my name so my dad wouldn't get it. Plus, by doing that, at least financially, I would be getting a much bigger share. The house is worth about 1.5x the amount of my brother's trusts. I just wouldn't be able to do anything with it until my brothers are 18, which I'm totally cool with. Sorry if I don't have a better answer, but I'm just trying to translate what she told me. My parents. The big fight happened on Sunday, and I haven't spoken to either of my parents since. I think they're both at my mom's place right now, but that's fine with us because we're all still mad at them so they can stay gone for all we care. I know technically that's not legal to just leave us alone, but I've been taking care of my brothers for over a year. I can handle a few days while he gets his together. Screw both of them. Hope that clears some stuff up. Additional information from OP on her parents. Stepmom's health. Why isn't Jane on dialysis? I don't remember the exact details, but Jane has a genetic condition where she gets cysts on her kidney. She already had a transplant a few years ago, but now she developed problems with her arteries or something in her legs, so she doesn't qualify for dialysis. She could get another transplant, but she doesn't want to because the last time was so traumatic, rejections, etc. So she decided to just let herself go on to maintenance medications to prolong her death until she gets her affairs in order. She has a few other health problems that make the typical treatments really dangerous, and according to her, she'd rather die surrounded by loved ones than on an operating table. Dissolving the trust fund. Jane told me she didn't technically have to do it, but she didn't trust my bio parents not to do something shady and get a hold of the money before I turn 18. Even if my aunt controlled the fund, my dad would still be able to collect if something happened to Jane before I turn 18. Her lawyer suggested it's better safe than sorry, and I agreed that it was the best option. I'm not an expert, though. I don't know the details. How my mom knew. Like I said before, I'm pretty sure Jane told my dad, who then told my mom, and that's how the argument started. I can't think of any other way, and I didn't really care enough to ask. Jane's thoughts on my mom. She didn't know my mom was doing all of that. My mom has her own place and would only come over whenever Jane was in the hospital for a few days at a time. I've been living with my dad for a little over a year, so he probably told Jane that my mom was there to spend time with me if he told her at all. Besides, she didn't move in until a few months ago, which I guess is when they started hatching their plan. Jane never outright banned my mom from visiting, so there really wasn't anything she could do. Hope that helps. Edit for the last part. The remainder of the money belonging to the estate that hasn't been put into trust for my brothers is going to be used to maintain the house, utilities, taxes, etc., until my brothers are 18, and then I can either choose to sell the house or keep it and maintain it myself. If I'm able to, I plan to go to school in that time and get a better job with the goal of keeping the house, but if I can't, then I have the option to sell it. Not that I will, but that's how it was explained to me. OP on her stepmom and their relationship provides thoughts on her bio mom. Honestly, it's because she's more of a real mom than my actual mom. My bio mom is kind of ambiguous about my existence, but Jane was always extra involved, sending me to sports teams and paying for dance classes and just showing interest in my hobbies as I got older. Plus, as the only girl, I think we bonded on a level she can't with my brothers, so she always made sure to let me know I was on equal terms with them. When I was younger, we would watch movies and have girl time where it was just us one-to-one, and those are some of my best memories with her. Jane is also really mature and someone I want to be like when I get older, whereas it feels like my mom is a teenager in an adult's body. She was constantly picking fights with my dad about dumb things, and Jane was always there to smooth things over and keep my best interest at heart over her own feelings. I know my mom made Jane's life really difficult for a long time, but Jane never complained or said anything to me about it, whereas my mom constantly complained about Jane. As I got older, I just always felt more at peace when I was around Jane than when I was around my mom. If you want your stepkids to love you, just be there for them and treat them like your own. Ignore whatever drama you have with your husband's ex and just love your kids. Trust me, if you really care about them, they will know. Update 1. Hi guys, it's me again. A lot of you asked me for an update on my situation with Jane and my family, so I've come back with a few things that have happened since I initially posted. I will try to organize this in a way that addresses the major points of last time. Jane is still alive and doing surprisingly well considering the circumstances. She's always been a fighter, and although her disease has been progressing, she's keeping a positive attitude with everything that is going on. She says she's grateful that she was able to see everyone's true colors before she passed, so she could go into the next life knowing the truth. We have become so unbelievably close in the past few months, and it's getting harder and harder to know that she's getting close to the end. She doesn't ever talk about it, though, and I know it's because she doesn't want to hurt me, but we both know the situation, so we're just making the best of our time. I'm also not being completely transparent about all of the drama at home, but TBH, I don't think she needs to hear all of that. We did end up having that surprise celebration of life that I planned. A lot more people showed up than I thought, but they all got an Airbnb near the hospital where Jane is, and we were able to take her out and spend some time at the lake near the facility. It was super low-key, which I know Jane preferred, and I was even able to get her old college friend to come after I found him on LinkedIn. We had food, and there was music, and we played games, and it was overall a really great time, except Jane started crying at the end, but she promised me it was just because she was grateful. My brothers are also doing okay. My aunt, Jane's sister, is currently paying for them to go to therapy, and they've become a lot more open about talking about the situation. They just turned 13, but a lot of the time it feels like I'm talking to actual adults, lol. They've become really independent lately in a good way, and aside from me driving them places, I don't really have to do much for them anymore. Their grades aren't super great, but they're not failing, and considering the circumstances, it could be a lot worse. They still hang out with friends, and I'm keeping an eye out for depression symptoms and stuff. The situation with my mom is as funny as it is embarrassing, TBH. She spent a few weeks ignoring us, and then she tried to crawl back into my life, basically begging me to let her move in because her lease is about to expire and she has nowhere to go. That convo went about as well as you'd think, and she ended up calling me an ungrateful beach, and that I couldn't just ignore her because she's my mom. I told her to get out of the house before I call the cops and to go back to my dad, who at that point was only coming home every few days to check on us and grab some clothes. After that, she tried coming by a few times, and when I wouldn't open the door, she would lose her mind and start yelling through the neighborhood. After 3 instances of this, I finally called the cops, but because I'm 17, They told me there's a possibility that I would have to go home with her since technically I'm a minor and need to be with the custodial parent. I told them no way, because I was the only one watching my brother's ATM. That led to a whole thing where after a few hours my dad basically showed up, and I was allowed to stay there because there was finally an adult present and I'd basically lived there for over a year. After that, the cops firmly told my mom that if she keeps showing up and causing drama, my neighbors confirmed that she'd been there a few times screaming, that they would arrest her for trespassing since technically it was Jane's house and not hers. She left and hasn't tried coming to the house anymore, but for a while, she would call me constantly, telling me I owed her and all kinds of stuff. She's now blocked on everything, and anything she needs to say to me gets filtered through my dad. As for my dad, well, since he's basically required to be here for another 2 months until I turn 18, we basically just avoided each other. It's not too bad, though, because I've been heavily relying on guilting him for everything to get my way. For example, he was going to contest the divorce, but I threatened to kick him out when I turn 18 if he does that, so he just signed all the paperwork for a quickie divorce and is basically doing whatever Jane tells him to do. I don't openly disrespect him or anything. He's still my dad, but I've made it clear that I have no intentions on doing anything he says ever again, and he doesn't fight me on it. Most of the time, he's just in his room, and sometimes he'll go back to my mom's, but only for a day or two before they argue and she kicks him out again. Oh, I haven't decided whether or not I'll kick him out yet, and we haven't talked about it either, so I'm kind of playing it by ear. As for me, I'm handling everything as good as I can. I found a new job where I make a little more money, so I've been focusing on saving as much as I can and just being there for my brothers. Between working in school and visiting Jane, I've been so busy I haven't really had time to really stop and think about everything, but I know it'll come. One of my friends has really stepped up and helped me manage everything, and I'm super grateful to him for being there for me and my brothers, so we'll see how that goes. Anyways, I wish I had something more exciting to share, but that's what's happened since my last post. Smiley face. Thanks again for all the support on my last post. Final update, December 14th, 2024. Hello, everyone. It's me again. I've gotten quite a few messages in the past months asking for an update, so I'm going to post my final update here and hope that it's enough to answer the questions everyone has been asking. I'm sorry that it took so long to update, but a lot has been going on. As many of you may already assume, Jane passed away early fall of this year. It was very traumatic and sudden, but the silver lining is that she exceeded every doctor's expectation for her life, and when she did go, she was surrounded by family, including me, my brothers, and my dad. She was on palliative care and felt no pain except for a brief moment right at the end, and we are all very grateful for that. Towards the end, Jane was physically pretty much done, but her mind was as sharp as ever. I took the advice of many of you here and recorded some voice notes for my brothers. I originally wanted to do video, but by the time we were able to do it, we both decided they didn't need to remember her wrapped in tubes and in a hospital gown. She also wrote many letters for her friends, family, and even for me to open when I reached certain milestones. She gave me one to open right after she passed away, and while I won't share too many details, I can say with absolute certainty that she is and forever will be who I consider my mother, without question. It was very, very emotional for everyone, and although it has been a few months, I am still very heartbroken about her no longer being with us. She was a kind, gentle woman, and in my heart, she is who I aspire to be. My brothers are obviously very hurt about our mom dying, but just like before, they are taking it surprisingly well. They are still going to therapy, both together and separately, and we have a lot of conversations whenever they feel like talking. We've always been close, but I feel like we're closer now. Even though I work, we hang out as often as we can, and I'm doing everything I can to be the support that they need. They don't know it, but I definitely need them as much as they need me because they're the only ones I can really talk to about anything. Ironically, now that our family glue is gone, we're pulling together stronger than before. My dad and I mended the fences, so to speak. We went to a few therapy sessions together where he took full responsibility for his behavior, and I've forgiven him as much as I can, especially since he eventually started doing everything he could to be there for Jane at the end. Even though they still went through with the divorce, he's still living with us, and things are a little tense, but they're much better than before. He's my dad, and I love him, but he was also broken by Jane's condition, and he wasn't able to cope in a healthy manner. Her dying really brought some light into his eyes, so to speak, and now he's really stepping up to be the man he was supposed to be. A lot of people commented saying too little, too late. But again, he's my dad, and for my own mental health, I have chosen to forgive him. As far as I know, my bio mom pretty much vanished off the face of the earth when I turned 18. She tried a few times to convince me to let her live with us, but I wasn't having any of it. Even my dad told her he's officially done, and after we all blocked her on everything, she stopped reaching out. She doesn't have any relatives who talk to her, so I don't have to worry about that. But I did hear from people who follow her on Facebook that she has a new boyfriend that she's living with. I don't want to stalk her or anything. I really don't care. She hasn't come to me with any kind of apology, so TBH, she can get bent. It's a little hard for me to think that she'd just walk away the second I turned legal just because she didn't get any of Jane's money. But oh well, true colors and all that. Guess 18 years was too long to pretend to care. I'm just so angry with her. I don't want anything to do with her anymore. Maybe that will change one day, but I'm not holding my breath. As for me, I'm doing pretty okay. I decided to take a year before I start college to handle all of this, and I'm still at my same job, so I'm saving up money wherever I can. My friends have all been great supporters, and I'm so grateful for everyone, especially you Reddit folks who have been checking in on me and making sure I'm okay. I'm taking things one day at a time, and that's been working great to keep my focused. My goal is to go to college next year and study journalism, but I'm playing it by ear. I can always go back to school, but right now my family needs me, and if that takes longer than a year, then so be it. Thank you, everyone. This will be my last update, and I very much appreciate all the love and support you've shown our family. Jane, I know, was very grateful for all of you too, and all I can say is hold your loved ones tight and be careful of anyone who seems too good to be true. Much love and blessings to you all. Now on to the next story. Story 10. Am I wrong for making my son take a paternity test? All names have been changed. This is a mess, and I would appreciate opinions from unbiased people. It was recommended that I post here in another page. I, F39, have 2 kids, M17 and F10. When I was 21, I had a one-night stand which resulted in my son, Austin, the father wanting nothing to do with my child. When my son was 3, I met my husband, Mark, M38. My son adores my husband and calls him father. Austin met his current girlfriend through Mark's best friend, Alan, her father. Macy and Austin have been close since they were young, and we were all thrilled when we found out they were dating. After we found out, Mark and I sat Austin down and explained that we're happy for him, but we needed him to know the importance of safe sex whether it was happening or not. He was disgusted but said he understood, and we left it at that. For context, my son is what others describe as shy and soft-spoken. He's really sensitive and takes harsh comments/actions to heart. We thought everything was fine with him until he came home crying. He eventually told us Macy had cheated on him. I was angry and urged my son to leave, but my husband calmed us both and asked to speak with Austin privately. Essentially, he asked Austin what he wanted to do and if he wanted us to stop seeing Macy and her father. Austin said he didn't want that and wanted to work things out with Macy. I was upset but didn't say anything. Ever since that happened, I've hated seeing her around. All I think about when I see her is my son distressed and crying his eyes out. I act cordial around her, but I don't like her around. February, Austin came home looking rather upset again. So I sat down with him and asked what's going on. I wasn't expecting to hear him say what he said to me. Macy's pregnant. I was furious. I told him I expected better from him. I also said that before anything happened, he needed to do a paternity test. He was angry that I suggested she cheated again, but I didn't like how she was suddenly pregnant. When Mark came home from work, I filled him in and he was equally upset. We all sat down and discussed. Austin explained that I demanded a paternity test was done and Mark wasn't happy to hear that. I explained that she's cheated before. She could have cheated again. That led to a huge argument before we all calmed down. I asked if her parents knew. Apparently not. He said she agreed to tell them tonight, and sure enough, about an hour later, Mark gets an angry call from Alan, demanding that my son marries his daughter, and if Austin refuses, He demands that he pay child support and stay out of this kid's life. Of course, we were all angry and exhausted. So I said that nothing was happening until a paternity test was done, and I wasn't taking the word of a cheating little girl. He blew up at us, and it was radio silence after the call. Macy was told she can no longer see Austin, and he took it out on me. A few weeks ago, Alan contacted us and agreed to do a paternity test. I asked why the sudden change, but he ignored me. He said he set up the appointment for May 5th. Austin went with Mark. He said he didn't want to be around me. Stung, and I won't lie, it made me cry when he said that. Results finally came in a few nights ago, and he isn't the father. He was shattered. Instead of apologizing, he screamed that this was my fault and he'd have never known. He hasn't said much to me since. Maybe I was wrong for making him do a paternity test, but I was only looking out for my son. Was I wrong for making him take a paternity test? Update. October 25th, 2023. Hello all. I got a few requests for an update, so here it is. First of all, I'd like to thank everyone for their opinions. I was questioning if I did the right thing since finding out he wasn't the father and thought I was too rough with the situation. We've all been in therapy, group and individual. My son has started to come around and apologized for the yelling and shitty choices. He calls it that, not me, he made. His therapy encouraged him to explain his thought process about the entire thing, and essentially he thought she was the one. She was his second girlfriend and thought that they had a strong bond until one of his friends showed him a picture of her kissing some other guy. It turned into a big fight and only escalated when he found out they had slept together. I myself have been cheated on, and it made me angry to know Austin had to experience it himself. He said he wasn't happy about the entire thing and he's feeling guilty for taking it out on me. We hugged it out and got ice cream afterwards, our little ritual after we've had an argument. Austin also broke up with Macy after finding out, of course. Of course she blames me for the entire thing, but she's old enough to know that her actions have consequences. She hasn't been handling it well. Apparently she's been lashing out at everyone possible and attempted to egg our house. Austin has been quiet, but I can tell he's starting to accept what's going on and he's been spending more time with friends. I've been giving him his space and I think that's helped in the long run. Now on to Mark. A lot of people had a lot of assumptions about him and some even suggested he is the father, but that is far from the truth. He's known this little girl her entire life and thought she was better than that. He wasn't trying to save his friendship with Alan. He was allowing our nearly adult son to make his own choices and deal with the consequences of said choices. Macy has also given birth recently and we know who the father is. Unfortunately, the father was Austin's best friend, Chris. He decided it was a good idea to tell Austin while they were hanging out here. I wasn't in the room when he was told, but I was there when he started to beat Chris up. I was outside setting up Halloween decorations in the front yard when I heard a thunk and some screaming. So I ran in through the front door to find Austin punching Chris over and over again. Mark also heard the commotion and came to pull Austin off Chris. Chris apologized and left. It wasn't until he drove away that Austin broke down crying. We all went out for dinner that night and we tried to cheer him up, but I'm starting to realize he needs space on this and to let him come to me about it when he's ready. Mark and Austin have been going out the last couple of days. Mark says that he remembers when he was Austin's age and only hopes he's helping him realize that he's got a whole lifetime to find his one. Therapy has helped us out, but I know he needs his space to process this. Thank you all once more and please take care of yourselves. Relevant comments. Comment 1. Also, what happened with Alan? OP replied, as far as I know, he's gotten in contact with Chris and his parents and they're working out child support. I haven't personally heard from him, but this is what Mark has told me. Comment 2. I wonder if he was as hostile with them as he was with y'all. Their friendship survived unscathed, or were they distant up until the paternity test? OP replied, they were distant and they are still distant. Now on to the next story. Story 11. Wife and her best friend tried forcing their kids to date for years. When my son rejected her daughter's public proposal, she got bullied at school. Then my wife demanded he apologize. This is a throwaway, but this involves some absolute high school drama nonsense that someone my age shouldn't have to deal with. But maybe I'm tripping and missing something, so here I am. I, 45M, share a daughter, 17F, and son, 15M, with my wife, 41F. My wife's best friend, 40F, has 2 daughters, 18F and 15F. My wife's best friend moved to our town about 6 years. My wife and her best friend have been not so subtly pulling for the 2 15-year-olds to end up together. I find this weird and low-key creepy. About 2 years ago, wife's BF's youngest daughter appeared to have developed a crush on her son. My son talked to me about it, and he had zero interest, so we discussed how to tactfully but firmly let her down. She has approached him again a number of times over the last couple of years, and he has reaffirmed his lack of interest. This past summer, my wife's BF's oldest daughter turned 18. Her parents went all out for her birthday. It was a whole weekend of festivities and events. One of the events was a couple's dinner for the oldest daughter and all her friends and couples. The younger daughter of wife's BF wanted to go to the dinner but did not have anyone to go with. She asked my son, and he agreed to go but only as friends in just this one time. So they went together. After the dinner, the couples all watched 10 Things I Hate About You together. It was my son's first time seeing it, and he commented that he thought the Heath Ledger singing scene was cool. This is important later. My business partner, 44M, every year for the last 5 years throws a huge Halloween party. All our employees are invited along with close friends and family. The party requires a costume, and at this party, there are prizes for best individual costume, group costume, and couples costume. My wife's BF and her family are obviously invited every year. This year, the Halloween party is tonight, October 26th. So, let me get to the reason I am here. About a month ago, my son is at school, and comes towards him as my wife's BF's younger daughter with the whole song and dance routine. She ends it by asking him to be her date for the Halloween party. My son was so frustrated and reiterated for everyone to hear that he is not interested in her like that at all. Of course, it being high school, some kids laughed and she ran off crying. She has been bullied pretty badly because of it. My wife's BF is livid and thinks our son owes her daughter an apology. My wife agrees and thinks at a minimum he needs to defend her against the bullying. My son has said that for 2 years he has told her he is not interested and reiterated it over and over. At this point, he thinks it's kind of harassing to him and it is not his role to defend or harassment of him. I agree with my son. My wife and I have had a number of disagreements about it since it happened. Well, things have intensified in the last couple of weeks or so because another girl who wife's BF's daughter apparently does not like asked our son to be her date for the party. And he agreed. They are doing a pretty dope couple's costume. This has really pissed off my wife because she thinks he should at least not go to the party with another girl out of respect. I think that is ridiculous. I plan on driving them to the party with me. My wife now does not want to go to the party and is saying I am in awe and raising our son to be one. So, IDA? Update 1. November 14th, 2024. Given the events of the past couple of weeks, I thought I would give an update. My wife did not come to the Halloween party. I took my son and his friend, and they had a great time. Unfortunately, only came in 4th in the couple's costume voting. After the party, tensions with my wife died down considerable. She still felt what I did was wrong, but she took a what is done attitude. The bullying at school has gotten more intense apparently. My wife's best friend's daughter confronted the girl who my son did take to the Halloween party. That escalated the bullying from other girls, and 2 factions have formed among the girls in 2 grades over this, and it has gotten out of hand. Apparently some accusations have been thrown around about cheating at my son by various girls. My son has been unbothered because all his truly good friends know the truth. Last Friday, we got a call from the school wanting to meet with us about the situation since my son was the source, their words not mine, of the issues. We met with some of the administration and one of the teachers on Tuesday. They wanted my son to help the situation by defending my wife's best friend's daughter to their classmates. He refused and talked extensively about her harassing behavior over the past 2 years. They pushed against his description of her conduct, but we ended the meeting with my son promising to provide a list of her harassment over the past 2 years. Tuesday evening, my son prepared the list and showed his mother and I. When my wife saw the list, it was like scales fell from her eyes. She got pretty emotional, apologized to our son, apologized to me, and we had had a good group hug. She is now 100% on our side. She asked our son if she could share the list with her best friend. My son agreed. My wife's best friend's response was to double down. My wife is going low contact for the time being. On Wednesday, we took the list to the school. It is a private school and has a strict code of conduct for students in and out of school. So there is a possibility best friend's daughter may have some type of punishment for her behavior. I took my son out of school for the day, and we hung out all day. Just dropped him back off at school today. So this is the update. Edit. I wanted to add something I said in the comments. My mom for years was a counselor. One thing she taught me is that repentance and forgiveness are not events but processes. Also that in order for a relationship to be restored, there must first be repentance from the wrongdoer. In light of that, a practice she had our family do was to write letters when one of us caused harm to another. The letter includes in detail 1. The wrong the person has committed. 2. The resulting harm that was done. 3. The immediate actions that will be taken to mitigate the harm. And 4. The long-term actions being taken to mitigate the harm / ensure the action is not repeated. My wife is currently working on her letter. The person who receives the letter can respond and requests that additional actions be taken to address the harm done. My wife knows she is only at the beginning of the process and that it is going to take time. Update 2, January 18, 2025. This will be the final update. After everything that went on with the school last semester, my wife's best friend decided to remove her from school, and she is now going to the local public school. But a week ago, my son received an email from the daughter apologizing for everything that occurred last semester and asking for them to remain friends. Apparently her dad finally set her down and explained how everything she did would look from a guy's perspective. My son wrote back and said while he accepted the apology, he thinks it is best that he keep his distance. He wished her luck at the new school. My wife's best friend still insists that my son should apologize to her daughter. My wife has said in no uncertain terms that isn't happening. A few more kids were disciplined by the school since my last post, but things have calmed down on that front. We are doing family counseling and it has been going well. That is all. This is the final update. We have reached the end. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us your thoughts about the stories in the comments section. Thank you and see you in the next video.